There it is. Hey, we're doing this thing again. Back at it here on the old BCX, the Brian Campbell experience. You're looking right at the proprietor of this here YouTube channel, all right? Well, hey, I need Mikey's help, of course. But yeah, it's Brian Campbell back at it. Wednesday, December 4th, 2024. And what a busy time in this week for combat sports rumors and I don't know, optimism. There's a lot going on, a lot we're going to talk about today. So welcome on in. This is Campbell's Rambles. This is the space each week, MySpace, if you will, right? Hey, I'm nothing more 2006 than referencing MySpace. By the way, I met my wife on MySpace. All right. All right. Just take that and shove it. Okay. What I'm trying to say to you folks is thank you for joining this here channel, this here podcast where I every Wednesday, just really talking elaborate circles for upwards of 2 hours. And, you people ask me your questions and I answer them. That's how it works, right? I ramble, you ask, there's a super chat, right? You know what I mean? People help me put shoes on Turki. Oh, wait, that's Luke. Sorry. Somebody's got to pay for these kids to go to college. So purple Gatorade is the drink of choice today. Let's get sauced up. Let's get ready. Tacoma Aroma's already itching. He is already itching. I appreciate that gentleman. I think it's a gentleman. It's a gentle person, just the same. This is the 11th time that you get to ramble with Campbell, and I'd like to thank, of course, Boston Scally for this fantastic hat, which, as you know, makes me look equally old and young at the same time. It's a real incredible effect that we have going on there. Any updates on this here channel? How about you like and subscribe if you haven't done it already? It's a slow burn. It's a slow, came out of the guns blazing, firing, throwing crap against the wall. It's yet to really become what I want it to be. Various setbacks along the way, but I'm just trying to keep the channel moving, flowing, and keep some of the staples in place, which of course is Wednesday's live Campbell's Rambles. Wednesday or Thursday. This week it'll be Thursday. You're going to get an Inside the Box with me and Rafe Boogs, and I recorded it today, and it's pretty damn great. Okay, so get ready for that. And of course, I sprinkle in a couple of things. I got a top 5 in the works coming up. I think you're going to like it a lot. Look at this. Luke Nocita of the Main Card Minute just sliding right in. He showed me that today. He texted me his top 5 on Spotify. The BCX made it. All right, so shout out to Long Island Luke, one of the better people on this planet, and a fine degenerate. Just the same. So yeah, it's gonna be what it's gonna be, but still have big grand plans for this here channel. Still, by the way, finalizing a fantastic intro. We got a theme song. We got a lot of things coming in the works. It's just been one step at a time, juggling a few different jobs, juggling life, which is never easy. So I hope all of you out there is doing well. I'm coming out of the dark from a rough November mentally, but we get back up, we fight. All right. You can knock me down, right? But I'm going to rise in the 12th round like Prime Fury. Okay. That's the deal. That's the story. That's how it works. Much appreciated. Hope you guys are doing well. As always out there. It's December. Okay. It's cold. There's going to be snow on the ground soon, depending on where you live, of course. But let's keep the head. Let's keep the faith. Hope you're enjoying this extended holiday season as we get closer to the big one, if you celebrate. And of course, I'm talking about Kwanzaa. So shout out to if you celebrate. Yes, thank you very much. All right there. Thank you. All right. I do love the past, Lazy Bed. So yeah, shout out to this fantastic Showtime basketball hoodie here. Great shirt. Have worn it. Still wearing it right now. So thank you very much. But I think I had something else to say. But I'll probably say it randomly over the next 2 hours. So all you people are my people, and we're gonna have fun. Okay. Yep. Mastermind. Thank you. You're one of my guys too. Okay. A reminder, as always, that Morning Combat will be back with an absolute bang this Friday, 11 a.m. Eastern on the YouTubes from home. And we get paid for it, too. But you know what we're about to do. We're going to hit that UFC 310. Is it 310 this weekend? Yeah, we're going to hit it hard. It goes down, of course, in Las Vegas on Saturday, the final pay-per-view of 2024. And dare I say, some really interesting storylines, matchups, and it kind of an interestingly deep card. Is it deep with crazy quality? Well, there's some hidden quality up and down there and some names. So, I'm fired up for that. We'll hit that hard on Friday. Yeah, that's what we do there. Okay. That's what we do right there. Thank you very much. My topics today, I got a few of them that I got to juggle. One of them I had to combine. Let's lead off here. I'm going to lead off my first one here with talking turkey. All right. Not necessarily the white meat or the other white meat or whatever it's called. I'm talking about Turki Alalshikh. I'm talking about the bankroller of all things big time combat sports and Riyadh season. If you celebrate, I think we all celebrate at this point if we're fight fans. Is it a holiday? Is it one day? Is it 1 month? Is it all year? You're living in Riyadh season right now. I want to bring up Turkey for a few reasons because a few of my points are kind of coming together at the point of Turkey. He's the fulcrum that has the potential to make a lot of our combat dreams possible. Do you get a receipt with that? Is there a catch? Of course there's a catch. But a lot of us has accepted a lot of what comes with that catch in the name of great fights. So are we getting it? We're really, really, really starting to get it. It's not just what Turkey and company have done over the past year plus since Riyadh season became a reality. And it's certainly not just what is probably the best offering yet from Saudi Arabia's involvement in combat sports, unless you've put the sphere there, right? Maybe something you had to be there, although I think it translated decent for TV. But I'm talking, of course, about February 22nd. I teased it last week. That card is official, and it's huge, and it's insane, and it's 6 fights deep, and they're all awesome. And you can check it out this week on my chat with Rafe and Inside the Boxer, where we go fight by fight and really break that down. But Turkey just dropping that on our laps from Beterbiev, Bivol 2 through Dubois versus Joseph Parker for the IBF heavyweight title, through Shakur Stevenson, Kid Austin, Floyd Schofield, and on and on and on, Virgil Ortiz. It's an exceptional card. But I want to focus on those 2 other things that Turkey's talking about right now, and the optimism that you may need to come along with that to really appreciate what could happen. Now, look, am I team Turkey? I'm team big fights. I'm team make me the best fights possible. Like I said, I'll accept parts of the catch. I'll take the sports washing. I'll take the other things that come with this deal to get this type of stuff. But right now, Turkey, and I think it was really pushed forward by that interview when he called in on Tuesday on the DAZN boxing show with Ariel Helwani and Ade Oladipo. Did I pronounce that correctly? I hope I did. Respect to that gentleman. Where Turkey called in and suddenly was dropping bombs on his potential plans. One of those was his hope that Terrence Crawford, who he says has a small minor injury that will push him to come back in May, that Turkey is hoping or looking to finally make that Canelo Alvarez Terrence Crawford fight. And you see some of this Twitter rumor mill / reporting. And I know these days it's like major things are getting put out there on X or Twitter with no real source or story backing them up. And we're just sort of like, oh, blah, blah, blah. I guess this is happening. But you hear the rumors that it could be in May. It would be a PBC pay-per-view. It potentially could be at Allegiant Stadium in Las Vegas. This got to perk you up in the chair. I know the catch in this case is Turkey telling Ariel and the other guy there that it comes down ultimately to him getting a hold of Canelo. And he says, I don't currently have an in to talk to on their team, but if they're listening, pick it up. I know there's a little bit of hesitance when you hear something like that. I mean, just DM him. But ultimately what Turkey's trying to say is, I want to talk to Canelo about this, and I want to talk to him one-on-one, no middlemen, no playing telephone. Let's go directly. Well, look, we know that Canelo doesn't seem to have a want to make those bigger, more dangerous fights that we want for him. And he didn't seem to want to fight Crawford for a while, but maybe the fact that Crawford's only getting older from the Errol Spence fight, maybe the fact that he had a tough fight in his 154 debut in August against Israel Madrimov, or maybe the fact that Canelo's already gone through of late in back-to-back fights some of those B minus, C plus opponents, Jaime Munguia, Edgar Berlanga, who were Canelo picks, still brought business, still brought a fun night at the fights, but didn't give us that consistency of what Canelo had been known for, and that's challenging himself against the best. And when you've got Benavidez and Morrell out there having to fight each other because he doesn't want anything to do with them, you can understand that we're going to throw some criticism his way. B. Voss saying here that Crawford's going to age himself out. He's way too inactive as opposed to, yeah. I mean, look, I think the longer we go from that Spence fight, to your point, the harder is it going to be really be for you to talk yourself into the idea of Crawford winning that fight, because he's moving up, essentially 3 weight classes from where he was at welterweight, 2 weight classes from here. But still, the star power is unbelievable. The wow factor of, You mean that guy whose son Spence at welterweight is going to go all the way up to Canelo territory? Like, yeah, this is one of those rare potential moments. I don't know how willing Canelo actually is, but I think to work with Turki, but I think Turki's got the right move. Let's go one-on-one and talk like men. Does Turki have the money to make this happen? Yes, Turki has the money to get Canelo off the couch to do the things he doesn't want to do if Canelo finds a willingness in there. And again, maybe it would have to be a PBC on pay-per-view, Canelo's choice, PBC on Prime pay-per-view, rather than Turki just take it to DAZN. Because remember, Turki for now, although sometimes you'll hear rumors of, will he ever buy DAZN? Is he, singularly DAZN affiliated? Well, right now, he's not officially affiliated with anybody outside of the sponsorship money that he's thrown at so many of these promoters to make it, I guess, easier for him to work with them. So just like him helping out UFC on pay-per-view, could he help out PBC in this case and Canelo and make this fight and pay the large sums to make it happen and make it an event at a football stadium inside a covered dome? Yeah, it pretty much could happen. If it's really just money and respect that Canelo wants and wants only to make this matchup if he feels people believe will actually give him credit for beating Crawford, I think those things can be signed off on. I think we can get past those things is what I'm trying to say. Canelo had 2024 to do what Canelo wanted. Can he now take a stupidly large payday while avoiding having to move up to 75 and fight those big names or fight those big names at 68? I just think, where else is Canelo going to go? Are you going to fight Eubank? Are you going to go to Japan? Are you going to fight Christian Mabili? I think all of those have diminishing returns eventually. And Canelo ultimately, and this is NBJFC89 sliding in here saying, drop it on the doorstep if I see that coming up the driveway. Definitely, yeah, there it is. I just think these are easy hurdles to clear. Now, these are just early rumors. Again, there's no source attached to it. There's no, but do I believe these are conversations that all of those parties would want to have ahead of me? Yes. Right. Again, who else is Canelo going to fight? Is he going to allow himself to kind of continue to slide down in decreased hype and matchmaking as we're all just going to consider sitting here, saying, why won't you fight Benavidez? This feels like a reality to me. Crawford's older. Crawford doesn't really want anyone else. He didn't seem to want Virgil Ortiz Jr. or he was hurt at this moment. I mean, what is there in that fight for him? There's no real title at stake, in my opinion, unless Canelo has an opportunity to fight somebody to become undisputed at 154, unless that could happen in one fight, which, you'd have to unify the belts. I don't know what else really could get him out of bed outside of Canelo. So if Turki can make this happen over the next few months, I mean, would that be a shot in the arm for PBC if that was the agreement? Yeah, that would be huge for them. This will be a massive event. So that's given me optimism. It's got to. I got to be excited about this. What about the other half of the optimistic potential equation with Turki Alalshikh? It is obviously what he told Errol, what he teased Errol. He didn't even say the name. He didn't even say the name John Jones. But when he was talking about, hey, I've got 2 fight offers potentially on the table for Francis Ngannou, and this is what Turki said. He said 1 in boxing, 1 in MMA, and then they got to the point of, well, what's the 1 in MMA? And Turki said, you know which one it is. It's obviously the idea of, if it's even remotely possible to make John Jones versus Francis Ngannou happen, it would need Turki as the middleman. It would need the ridiculous oil fund to pay for it. I get what, I had a nice text convo with Luke Thomas about this in the last few days. And he, I think, came from a point that a lot of people soberly should be. And that's ultimately of, hey, cool idea and all, but Dana and UFC are not going to do that. They're not going to set a new precedent and co-promote. They're not going to give PFL this platform and level of shine and brand awareness and all that. And I respect and I understand that. But I do think there are potential caveats at play that you do need to consider here. And there's a few of them. But I think also it's not going to be next. And I know everybody's probably screaming, BC, did you see that Instagram thing where somebody put out the potential rumor of, hey, Turki Alalshikh reports that he's in talks of, Jones versus Ngannou. Like, I don't even think it's there yet. And then Dana came out in the comments and was like, no, it's Jones versus Tom. Yes, obviously. UFC is trying to make Jones versus Tom. And I think you could even make the argument that you would need Jones Aspinall to happen first for the winner of that. And it would really need to be Jones to make this worth it. For Jones and Ngannou to happen, you would need that fight to potentially happen first, and you would need Jones to win. Unless the money we're talking about here is just stupid. So it's easy to come back and say, well, hey, again, optimistic plan, that's fun. But like Dana's track record is, don't set this precedent. don't, if they're not going to do Fedor versus Randy and co-promote with M1, even though they were willing to fly to an island and negotiate that. Scott Coker's got crazy stories about kind of being on the inside of that to some degree and helping bring that relationship together at the time when they were seriously negotiating that. And you get why that fight fell apart, and you get why it's not likely that any of this would ever happen. Except for this fact. It's not 2016 or below anymore. It's not Zuffa running the show where it's, Frank and Lorenzo on the numbers and Dana on essentially the matchmaking and stuff with Joe Silva, and then them all being a small think tank of cutthroat business strategy. It's the TKO era. The same era, by the way, of which Mayweather-McGregor fell in. Do you remember how many people, me included, looked into microphones back in 2017, looked into chats, stories, and were like, this is never going to happen, so stop talking about it, meaning Mayweather-McGregor. Because at the time, it wasn't just a grand, ridiculous idea that turned out to be the perfect combat sports storm. It was like, you think Dana's just going to allow Conor to call the shots and get to do this thing that all these other fighters can't do in their contract? I was assured that there was no chance Dana was going to allow it. So whether that fight ended up happening because, and the theories are that there was just too much money, so everybody said, let's just do it. Possible. Or two, Dana and company realized that Conor's going to push forward with this. We're going to have to sue him to stop the fight. It's going to lead to a breakdown in our relationship, an extended court battle, blah, 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 blah. Do we really want that? Hey, go back to point number one of what BC said. There's too much money for everybody involved to turn it down. Or maybe C, maybe both of those mixed with the fact that it's TKO, Ari Emanuel, Patrick Whitesell, Mark Shapiro running the show these days, right? Or Endeavor. When I'm saying that, I mean Endeavor/TKO. And if you read enough MMA draw content, right, the old bloody elbow, and you start to understand that maybe some of the stuff, the rhetoric that they say is true. Maybe the whole thing of how the Sphere played out really was kind of a battle between Dana representing the old guard and TKO representing the new. And the central battle there was, why are we going to throw all this money at an event that we won't make it back for just one grand night inside this ball, when our new business model is to extract as much money as possible every single inch, every single second. That's sort of the debate right there. But, there's some belief there when you look back on Mayweather versus McGregor that maybe it was TKO that spoke up and said, no, we should do this. Look at how much money we can make from this. Look at that lump sum of ridiculous millions we can make by co-promoting in that. Again, Jones versus Ngannou and Floyd versus Conor is not an apples to apples comparison. You could certainly argue that it was just some one-off weird boxing match and it stopped the world and there was so much money, so they just said yes. But that was also Dana allowing a precedent that if you get to be a star to a certain level, you can order off the menu like Conor did. Didn't work for Francis though, right? They shut that precedent down. But my point is that fight happened in the TKO era where they basically just looked around and said, there's too much money right now to not do this. What if Jones versus Ngannou can become something, not that exactly, because I don't think you're ever going to duplicate the exact recipe of what made Conor versus Floyd so huge and why it mattered so much at that time. But I've said it before and I'll say it again. Jones and Ngannou is the only MMA fight which has that true potential to give MMA its boxing Rumble in the Jungle type moment, or Thrilla in Manila, or Ali Frazier 1 at Madison Square Garden. That holy crap, generational, stop what you're doing. We just got to see what happens. I guess we're lucky that this is the heavyweight division and they age late, so it's not like it has to happen tomorrow. And certainly they've dodged a couple bullets of Francis leaving the UFC, going to boxing, getting knocked the hell out, but he did come back and finally make his PFL debut and got the win. And maybe this whole optimism that I'm trying to bring to the table here would only be realistic, again, like I said, if they did Aspinall first, if it was a huge fight, and if John won that, and then you're sort of like, okay, how do we top that? Well, there's one more boss. His name is Frank the Tank, and that's how we do it. My biggest point is it's easy to just dismiss and say, no, they'll never do that. Except for this, PFL and ESPN, PFL and UFC are on the same network in ESPN. What if Disney calls up TKO? What if this becomes something where it's like, holy crap, this could really be that 100,000 people in a stadium fight. This could really be that MMA equivalent, like I said, of Rumble in the Jungle. Where were you on that night? If it can get to that point where there's so much money at stake that it doesn't even matter, and Turki Alalshikh is basically like, look, we want this to be a Riyadh season event. We will pay your salaries. I want to remind people something of what has come out in the past week. Fury and Usyk are going to rematch for the heavyweight championship on December 21st. They made a crap ton of money the first time. It is rumored here, or reported, that in this rematch, the total purse is going to be in the area of $190 million for this fight. Some have said that was a record. Credit to Dan Raphael, who came out on Twitter, was like, hey guys, just so you know, Floyd and Manny made a guaranteed $200 million. I mean, I saw the $100 million check that Floyd was flaunting at the press conference after that fight. Now, Manny's $100 million, obviously, some had to go to Top Ranks. You know, you had to move that around a little bit. Whereas Floyd had a different relationship with Al Heyman and kind of being his own promoter to some degree. You get what I'm saying here. The rematch for Fury and Usyk, the reported purses, and this is, yes, a Riyadh season event, is $114 million to Alexander Usyk, and the rest to Tyson Fury, who, of course, lost that first meeting by close decision. That's a new level of money. That's a stupid level of money. So am I coming out here and saying, like, Francis and Jones could each make $100 million? No. But what if a similar amount of money could be put at the table? And UFC and TKO and the bosses are basically like, you're telling us we can have that as our company? We can take that in as a win? And all we have to do is make the biggest fight ever in this sport's history and allow for one fight that PFL is going to co-promote this one fight. I mean, I'm just saying to you, I would have said impossible, 10 years ago. I'm not going to say impossible in this era when, yes, Dana still has a major seat at the table, but Dana's not ruling this with an iron fist anymore. I think if you read close enough, like I mentioned, MMA's draws coverage, particularly of the Sphere and how that went down and the rift between Dana and the money crunchers at TKO about how much money was spent on that, you'll see the central tensions in here. Did we ever think UFC, parent company, would buy WWE and merge it into some super thing? No. But if you read and follow TKO business dealings closely, they want to be a part of these biggest things ever and leverage all their relationships together. So would we have to have Jones Aspinall first, and would Jones have to win? Maybe. But I'm not saying dismiss it. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I'm saying don't dismiss it. It's possible. I think Francis and PFL in general, and it's a Hail Mary to a certain degree, but they got to bang that drum and they're doing the right thing, because you got to plant that seed that this fight's out there. And the only thing stopping it in theory is that one man. And I know Dana said Turki said something to Ariel about, we got to send Dana to the moon kind of to make it happen. I don't know. Could you put the pressure on? Did I ever think that this governor of California could call Disney that could put the pressure on Dana to not do that early COVID card at Tachi Palace and to stand down? So we figured out in that moment, who's the real boss at the end of the day. In that situation, the boss was Disney, because they're signing that check that essentially pays for, 75% of what UFC does. That's their big moneymaker, obviously, the TV deal. Is there another boss in 2025 that's above Dana making these decisions that come down to finances and doing stuff like this? I think there is. And it doesn't hurt that these two promotions are on the same network. And doesn't hurt that I would guess PFL would almost want to do anything just to be a part of it. You know what I'm saying? So, like, if it was a fight on a UFC card and it was this generational event, all I'm saying is we can't get there unless Turki wants to be involved and wants to spend the money. And he just come out and said, I do. And I did. So look, it's not always going to be a perfect ride with Turki Alalshikh. You're probably going to get some super long cards. I mean, that February 22nd card, he told the media that Eddie Hearn and Frank Warren had to talk him down from putting 8 fights on that card. That right now it's 6. It's 6 must-see fights. A lot of them title fights. You're probably already looking at an 8-9 hour affair. It'll probably be like that WrestleMania that was at Giant Stadium a few years ago that I went to, where I think it started at like 3 p.m. and we didn't get out of there till after midnight. And he might become an honorable mention Hall of Famer in some random state Hall of Fame for no reason. And I'm sure a few people are going to win a trip to Saudi. And maybe, just maybe, somebody's going to get beheaded. All right, I hope not the last part. But this guy's literally trying to step in the two sports that we live in, that we love, that we lather on ourselves. And he's doing the Mr. Drummond thing on different strokes. But he's also willing and has the plan to make these fights happen. Not a perfect marriage, but not awful up to this point. So, Turki, hey, you're making moves. You're making noise. Will it happen? Things have to happen for it to happen. But it's starting, is really what I'm saying. I was that guy who said Mayweather-McGregor would never happen. Well, then things change, and it did. Things change here. At the end of the day, we are talking about prize fighting, money, and greed. And the biggest fight, the generational fights, make the most money, bring in the most casual eyes, and become these things. Those things are what TKO is all about. So this is just your friendly, optimistic weirdo, BC, who talks in circles on Wednesday saying, I saw what Dana put on Instagram, but I also know what can happen. All right. TKO's got Endeavor/TKO's had a lot of success with UFC. They also took on a lot of debt to get to this point. They love these type of paydays. Does that overrule one promoter with a, with a grudge against Ngannou? And by the way, that grudge is still strong. Did you watch UFC 310 Countdown and the Cyril Gane portion where they show the rise, and then it led to that Francis fight, and they show the arena, they show Gane's face, you can hear Buffer announcing the scores afterwards, but no mention or no visual of Francis Ngannou. So yeah, it's a deep grudge, but grudges get broken for stupid amounts of money. They do. So I'm ready for February 22nd. I'm ready for December 21st. I got the same questions and skeptic feelings about how much control can Turki take on in the fight game in 2025. How much is healthy? Are we going to see a Dana Turki Super League in boxing? Well, if we are going to see that, does that increase the likelihood we could see something like Jones and Ngannou? Yes, it does, in my opinion. Okay, that's just this guy talking. Topic number 2, I want to talk about Tank Davis. He's back in our lives again, obviously. He's got the pay-per-view coming up in March. PBC on Prime Video. Lamont Roach Jr., the same fight that was supposed to happen in December. And again, shout out to the PBC for putting this fight in Brooklyn. It couldn't be made in DC like they wanted, like it should have been because of the arena schedules there. And Tank wanted it badly in Houston, and they couldn't get that done. But going to Barclays, I think, and has helped a lot in reviving the interest in this because it's such a mecca. But then you have the press conference on Tuesday where Tank does a lot of, I don't want to say weird things, but a lot of things that I can't feel like boxing fans, especially those that have, protected Tank, that have said, look, I see the outside the ring stuff and it's not cool and it's not good. And, he has to pay his debt for that and has to some degrees, reputationally and with the legal system. But he's not just a face of the sport. It's guaranteed entertainment every time out. And there is something endearing about him. So when people try to make those arguments of, oh, he hasn't fought anybody, blah, 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 you go, okay, maybe not as many as you want, but I saw him move up and fight Barrios. I don't have an issue with the Leo Santa Cruz fights, blah, blah, blah. Add in Ryan Garcia, add in Tank, add in Frank Martin, who was undefeated, add in Rolly. Is it the best mix we've ever seen? No. But it's always this idea like he'll get there. He'll get to those fights. Well, the whole he'll get there thing probably needed to be better applied to whether he would show up at that press conference on Tuesday. Now, he ultimately did. And it's not like he hasn't been late before. And it's not like, big stars haven't been late, from Conor McGregor holding up press conference starts to, whatever, to post-fight in boxing. How many other reporters out there were with me in Brooklyn the night that Adrian Broner beat Paulie Malignaggi by split decision, and then we had to wait till like 3:30 a.m. Eastern time for AB to come to the press conference. Like, this thing happens in this game. Luke Thomas and I vamped for 90 minutes when Tank got a haircut and didn't show up for the Ryan Garcia presser on time in New York. But this time, he showed up 4 hours late, and Keith Idek reporting that Tank didn't even leave to fly on the private jet from Miami until after the press conference started. And then Tank is like, about the future, I'm probably retiring and going to get out of this, stupid. I forgot the adjectives he used, the stupid sport. The negative adjective to the sport. He's obviously talking about the business issues and some of that. And I mean, I know he's been at it with PBC over things involving money, involving the location of the fights. It can't be easy to be the biggest star at a time that PBC is really fighting and struggling to survive, where you want to call some of these shots. And you've already kind of had a standoff to a degree with Turki where you said, I don't need you on my own brand. So it's like, it's not like I don't understand where Tank's coming from. And it's not like I didn't dislike that interview he gave with Dan Canobio after the press conference, where he further illuminated that when he says I'm trying to potentially leave the sport next year, it's because I want to take my mental health seriously. I want to start doing therapy. And I feel like if I do that, it's going to kind of, numb the killer instinct that makes him such a great boxer. I understand all that. And certainly I appreciate the care in that. And if any fighter wants to get out earlier than later on their own terms, I'm always going to support that. But Tank shows up for a press conference for a fight that the fans don't hate, but didn't want. And the fight got delayed. And he shows up 4 hours late. And he announces, I hate this game. I'm probably not coming back after next year. And then when they're like, okay, so are you going to fight Shakur before you leave? And he's like, why would I fight that guy? What has he accomplished? I don't love that. I don't love that at all. Okay. I don't love that. Yeah. Never lose your killer instinct. How about never losing your killer instinct at the negotiating table and talking about other fighters? And maybe you can argue and say, well, BC, maybe this is him taking public negotiations. I don't buy that, because you're Tank. You're the leader in these discussions. You're the A side, A++ side. So, I know there's been some debate of people saying if Tank or if Shakur would have already signed with PBC, that, this would have been fine. And I think they would have already done this fight. And I think even Steven Espinoza, who's consulting for PBC, had come out and said that that Shakur wasn't looking to, or Shakur wanted a lengthy long-term deal with PBC, and PBC was only offering him at the time 1-fight deals. And that seems consistent with where the PBC's at right now financially, to be fair with you. But how is it a good look to just be like, a fight that probably already should have happened? And when you say, what does this guy accomplish? I mean, this guy did win an Olympic silver medal and has been a title holder in 3 divisions and is in your division with a title. So I think he's done a few things, right? We're past that. We're past that ability to be able to say, oh, who's that guy? He's worthless. He's nothing. I know Tank was supposed to be fighting Loma to end this year, and then Loma kind of pulled out of the negotiations and might retire, and that's fine. But Tank has an ability to almost call his own shots. I can't accept this. We're going into a fight again that I like, but I don't love. And now you're telling me these other big fights that we hope this is just a step toward. In that case, you're not interested. Oh yeah, and you're leaving the sport next year. This was tough for me to swallow. Now it's also just fighter talk, and I don't need to be reminded how many times Tyson Fury, Conor McGregor, and insert other big name like retire on the regular, or threaten to, or tweet that they're retired, and then Ryan Garcia, another one. Like this is what fighters do. I get that. All in all, though, I didn't love that look. I did like Lamont Roach Jr.'s attitude at this presser. And some of this comes down to history. When you find out that he had 2 amateur fights with Tank, that you find out that they've sparred a ton, when you find out that he ain't scared of him, I thought ultimately that was a good stand-up performance there in terms of, for whatever it's worth, at a press conference. It didn't seem like Roach complained that he had to wait. It didn't seem like he was anything but trying to stand up, to everything that Tank brought to the table. So I was in on that. I like that. That was good stuff. But I've also protected Tank from the standpoint of the matchmaking and saying, okay, but when you are that AAA super plus star, it's not always easy. Well, the structure has changed. Even if you're not with Turki, the structure has changed in 2024 going into 2025, where it is possible to make these fights. Where more than ever, I've seen fighters are these floating free agents. Not all of them, but it used to only be like the biggest guy in the sport or the 2 biggest. Now you're seeing, the Devin Haney's kind of make these new models happen. My point is these fights can be made. So I didn't love that. But let's keep it rolling. My final point is this. Ian Machado Garry It goes down, of course, this Saturday. Co-main event. What balls he has. We've been saying it. It's the biggest storyline, in my opinion, on the entire card in the co-main event. And that's no disrespect to the Kai Asakura story or the Pantoja one. And I think if you've watched UFC Countdown, for example, I thought really now it was deep in the 8th row, but it really kind of jazzed me up. Like, oh, I kind of forgot how good Asakura was, or is. I kind of forgot that he has got wins over like Horiguchi, Manel Kopp, Juan Archuleta. But Garry's the story in the same way that Shavkat previously was the story in the way the card was originally presented when he was going to fight Bilal, and it was, is he going to slice through him and take it? And we talked about that on Monday's MK. And respect to the balls of Garry, and in furthering what I've been saying about this idea that he's in this weird way turned himself around in our public eyes, not to everybody. And I think Luke Thomas just put out a video kind of, directly related to this topic and people liking him or choosing to dislike him. I didn't get to listen to it, but it's kind of, we're at this point where it is changing for all the BS of the cuck and the husband-in-law or whatever. I mean, like, there's a lot of BS for a while. Colby, the Neil Magny comments, there's been a lot going on. But what we really want out of fighters at the end of the day, to steal the Teddy Atlas quote there or term, is for them to behave like fighters. Like, the reality is we want fighters to act like the honor and glory of this sport is the most important thing, which is unfair because it's prize fighting and getting the bag is really, either the most important thing, the only thing, or the 1B to the 1A of keeping your health and being able to walk out of the ring at the end of the day. Although we have so many fighters who just have been forced to train themselves to the notion and the idealism that they will fight like they're willing to die in there. And I think a lot of them are, but I think you get my point. It is this is the structure. It is what it is. I think we like to pause the business side of it and really romanticize and play up. Well, they want to be great because the guys in the 80s did. And that's true. That's what I want. Yeah, that's what I want. I want fighters to behave like fighters. It's easier to behave like a fighter, in my opinion, in the UFC because there's more matchmaking control up top. But still, what Garry did in not just accepting this fight, but ultimately the way he has handled himself, and really, if you're able to pause out the storylines and the comments that don't really matter to the fight game, the stuff that maybe sometimes I get too caught up in, the drama, the soap opera side of it, that Luke, to his credit, is always just like, not here to talk about Ian and Garry's marriage, here to talk about him as a fighter. When Ian Garry talks about being a fighter and fighting, he acts and behaves like a fighter. He behaves like a fighter who's here for the respect, honor, and glory and accomplishment of it. The idea that I cannot let a day go by without taking the opportunity to prove to you all how great I can be. Well, this has been a PR tour de force for Garry this week, in my opinion, in reshaping his name and image and reputation, and also making us, I'll speak for all of us, making us almost want to really believe it too and buy in and pick him. Like, at the end of the day, the bet is Shavkat, and it's the right pick, and you can exhaust this equation from every aspect, but Shavkat could win and should win. It doesn't mean Ian Garry can't. Like, this is such a beautiful, rare, unbeaten fighter versus unbeaten fighter, and to some degree, neither has fully proven themselves. I mean, Shavkat's been a lot further than Garry, but to a large degree, they're going to be looking across at their toughest test to date in this fight. I can't wait. I respect both guys, because if we're going to talk about what Garry's doing, then you got to talk about what Shavkat's doing, which almost no one would do, which is, what we said ad nauseum, the idea that he's just like, yeah, I already secured the title shot, but I would slice up everyone in this division and wear their skin, Buffalo Bill and Silence of the Lambs style, like on my body to show it off. So fighting for the title or not fighting for the title or the main event, the co-main event, doesn't matter anyway, because I can't wait to go back and kill more animals and then parade them around. I mean, I'm paraphrasing and judging and generalizing, but that's kind of what that dude brings to the table. But Garry's making me almost want to believe that he really does have this magic and this kind of, and I'll say this, and the comparisons to Conor McGregor are always both obvious and a slam dunk, because Garry often speaks in Conor McGregor isms and does the dance, and really just kind of, I thought too much was honoring him and almost trying to clone him. But we all understand that what Conor really had up here back then on that rise was something out of this world super special, a vision, a belief, a just, I mean, that when that thing was focused, Garry's, if you take in totality how he's behaved and acted, I mean, there is a lot of determination, focus, and self-belief in that individual. So when you add in the fact that he has history sparring Shavkat at Kill Cliff FC. And, the Countdown Show did a great job of playing that up, but it was like something I knew, but hadn't remembered. I was like, oh yeah, I remember that sparring controversy with the recording, and people got mad as Garry jumped around gyms and he didn't always behave the right way. And maybe even that played out here to some small degree, if you wanted to throw a negative at Garry, that they put out the footage of them sparring. But as Shavkat has said, in multiple interviews, including with Ariel, it's like, yeah, but they didn't show the footage of me tapping him out, but it's also training. I just wonder if there's really something to that idea. I want to bring up Ryan Garcia, Devin Haney, and make that same comparison. Coming into that fight, I think we all thought, hey, fun, big fight, huge names, but come on, dude, Haney's going to discipline here and piece this guy up. I mean, Luke Thomas said he's going to tune him like a guitar because of how inconsistent Ryan Garcia had looked before. But although there were a lot of parts of what made that fight the result that it became, and some of it is Ryan doing the fake crazy routine / acting crazy, to be fair, and what that may have done to Haney mentally. But I don't think you can discount, after watching that fight in hindsight, the comfortability / confidence that Garcia had from the 6 amateur fights with Haney. Maybe it's different in this comparison because Shavkat is a dangerous finisher in every single category. In fact, all 18 of his pro opponents have yet to get out of the third round there or see the judges or do anything but get, viciously controlled, handled, and put to sleep. And Haney's not a big power puncher in that regard. But when they had 6 fights in the amateurs against each other, they were rivals. They had sparring when they were young pros. And I've seen some of that footage get leaked. And guess what? Ryan's landing that same quick left hook on Haney like it's nothing. It's like the only punch you can get off on him. Maybe in that case, we do need to value what that can do to a fighter to raise their confidence and their level of belief to a new level. Maybe there's some of that in Garry, who it was sparring, but he's been in there with this werewolf before. You know what I'm saying? Like, he's felt how sharp the claws are. I'm saying Garry is so confident that he makes me want to believe he can pull this off. Obviously, when I do the math and when I really look at the matchup, and we'll get into this on Friday's MK, like, you wouldn't be shocked if he won, but you're also like, where's the exact path here? Is it going to be speed and striking? Is it going to be hard to hit? Like, what's going to be the thing that disciplines or confuses or frustrates Shavkat to the level that he can pull this off? Or does he have to lure him into a battle? And that Jeff Neal fight had some weird moments in that same way. I don't know. It's hard to say at this point. But he makes you want to believe. And for a guy that we were all kind of just dunking on and teabagging verbally and making fun of for a lot of that other soap opera stuff, for him to stay the course, get better in each fight, and then accept this opportunity and then come with this aura, yeah, let's get the popcorn going. Okay, I'm ready for Saturday night. And as much as I really like that main event, Saturday night is about that co-main event. It is 100% about that fight. I saw an MMA On Point had a nice video recapping the brief history of these type of fights, unbeaten prospect versus unbeaten prospect. I don't even think they had on there, or maybe I didn't finish watching it, the John Jones versus Ryan Bader. And maybe that one wasn't officially because Jones did have that DQ loss. But this to me, rings like a John Jones versus Ryan Bader, because that was the fight that launched him into the Hua fight. Even though he took that fight on short notice and there was happenstance that allowed that to open up, it was the success of that Bader fight and him stepping up to the level and then fully dominating. Unbeaten versus unbeaten in this sport at this point where they're so close to a title, and now this being an official number 1 contenders fight. Oh yeah. I mean, are you feeling what I'm feeling? Am I the only one sitting here right now feeling this? Maybe I should get it looked at by a doctor, but I am feeling it entering into Saturday. But with all that love and with all that, positive stuff, I mean, Shavkat's still going to wear Garry's skin, most likely, after this fight, all right? So put the lotion in the basket. There you go. All right, shout out to Boston Scally again for this great Chuck Mindenhall looking hat. No, I got this. I got the Myth hat. I got my middle-aged starter kit going there. All right, those are that's my ramblings to begin. we will now open up the floor to you, the fantastic listeners, the subscribers, the members of this here social club. I mean, smoke them if you got them right now, okay? I mean, crack a cold one. I'm only rocking water with one of those hydration packets and some Gatorade, so I'm going soft core with you right now. But yeah, well, I got to figure out the technology, and I'm risking someone showing their poll. I know this, but I got to figure out the technology of, we got to get this bar more social. We got to get some of you guys on the screen, the ones that have been cleared and vetted. Okay, that's for the point. Anyway, topics are open. Whatever things you have to say, I'll answer it. Super chat's open if that's how you get down to support the cause, to support the channel and what I'm trying to do here, and Mikey as well. Thank you as always for that. All right, here we go. Let's hear. I mean, who we got here? Lazy Bed. Let's get lazy here. Okay. Big fan of this guy, Lazy Bed, by the way. BC, as someone who has held multiple positions, podcaster, commentator, desk analyst across various areas of the fight game, MMA, boxing, and wrestling. What is your final frontier in combat sports? I guess I kind of answered this a couple weeks ago, but undoubtedly calling live boxing, on the pay-per-view level, on the biggest level, that's the goal. That's always been the goal. Well, not always, but once it became the goal, it became the goal. Above MK, above the BCX, above anything else you can throw at me. So certainly that's where I'm going. That's where I'm headed. That's where I'm putting all the things in the basket. I'm putting my genitals in that basket too. I'm ready. I am all in on this dream. Okay. Sometimes the phone rings. Sometimes I've been really close to something permanent, a solid elite gig. And I'm really close right now in a few categories, but it'll happen when it's going to happen. And I just want you to know that I'm ready. I'm ready to take over the damn world. Okay. I'm ready to be that hungry lion who shows up at the Republican National Convention and makes racist jokes. All right. What's my final frontier? Yeah, it's doing that. And I don't really know. Am I going to be better equipped in the long run as the second color analyst on a 3-man team, or the full-time Jim Gray role, or a combo of both? I mean, look, I've had cups of coffee with play-by-play. It's the hardest job of all of them. Really, maybe it's the hardest job, except for this one, soloing like this, solo masturbate, soloing, solo radio, like a Colin Cowherd. That's hard. That is hard. It took a while to get adjusted to this, but play-by-play is maybe the real final frontier. I've really only done it on the undercard level, or maybe a couple broadcasts where the positions, the roles were a little more gray and you can kind of float in between. But whatever the role is, host, whatever you got, this is what I want to do. This is my passion. And I'm really just looking around my life, the month of November notwithstanding, it was a rough month, and really just trying to figure out like what else is left that is getting in the way of me accomplishing this goal. I'm going to clear all those things out because, at the end of the day, I want to make sure that I gave the biggest swing I possibly could. And that if I lose, it'll be because of my performance and never because of me. That's my motivation. That's my mindset on this ultimately. We've all been given various times second chances in our life. And I'm going to land this plane Sully Sullenberger style. Believe that. All right. I'm going to get there. It's going to happen. The other thing I talked about is that impossible dream I have of being a part of whatever will look like the first ever combat sports version of like Inside the NBA. I don't know, would it air on TV? Would it air on somebody's YouTube? What would it be? I'm talking about top shelf studio production, A-list hosts and analysts there. And no matter what is going on in combat sports, whether that was a morning combat vehicle or it was a vehicle on a TV channel, I want to be a part of it. I want to be the groundbreakers. I want to be on that whatever the fights end on Saturdays, you're going to that, wherever that is. And those guys are going to break it down for you immediately. And maybe there's, little tastes we're already doing with that on our solo channels or on Morning Combat. And maybe others have. I mean, look, Ariel's built himself an empire and is doing a lot of cool stuff right now too. But that would probably be my end all, because there ain't nothing like, there really ain't nothing like calling live fights, live boxing from the ring apron, being in the ring after for the interview while the voice is shot to the house on pay-per-view. There's no net. That is live theater. That's it. That's the heroine of this job. Okay. Yeah, it is. And a lot of us are just junkies chasing that. But I'll be honest and real with you. The worst part is the anticipation, the anxiety leading up. But the second that show ends and you know that you nailed it, you know that you respectfully added a soundtrack to that great sporting event involving athletes that you respect and care for. That's the moment right there. There ain't nothing better than that moment, right? The planes landed, everybody made it. There we go. Okay, that's BC's goal in a nutshell. There, for whoever cares, I don't know, whatever. There we go. Max Payne is here. He's right here. Max, thank you. BC, as an enjoyer of early Creed albums, I mean, dude, that first album holds the hell up, and I don't care who you are, where you come from, or how cool you're trying to act. That first album rocks. Now the question becomes, how long can we keep on after that first album that it still rocks? I own the second one on CD. And I gotta say, upon purchasing it right when it came out, I liked it. I liked it. It was the beginning of the unraveling. It was when we started going arms wide open and we just kept going down that road. But what's that big hit from the third album? I mean, that might be the best song, I mean, that is great. So, okay, here's what you're asking. Do you sometimes find yourself dabbling in Alter Bridge discography, the band which is basically Creed with Miles Kennedy as frontman instead of Scott Stapp? So I have never listened to a single second of Alter Bridge, and I'm definitely not like a traditional Creed fan or ironic, nostalgic Creed, protector. This kind of just happened naturally. Because I went back and listened to the first album again, and I was like, you know what? My early instincts were right. That album did kick some ass. Okay. All right. I've been in my own prison. Okay. I mean, it is humorous to say it out loud. So you know what, Max Payne, you are making me intrigued by the idea of not only giving their third album an actual chance, and I don't know how many more are there after that. It's probably diminished returns down a long, long hill. But give an Alter, I mean, that rhythm section's pretty good. Give an Altered Bridge a chance here. All right, I'll give it a try. I will give it a try and report back next Wednesday, 4 p.m. in the East, as Luke would say, on this here Ramble. So Max Payne, why don't you get a piece of that? But yeah, I mean, go put on One, not by Metallica, by Creed right now. And I mean, it kind of, it rocks. It'll remind you how good redneck rock can be. Okay, you know what I'm saying? I mean, imagine like when Creed was hit, for anyone that's going to be like, man, how lame could you be? For the people that aren't awesome on the inside, right? And they just couldn't even imagine enjoying Creed. Also, let's not forget that was the worst period in rock and roll history, and they were like the coolest guys in a room filled with like Limp Bizkit and Kid Rock. Like that's the truth and the reality. Okay, yeah. There it is. By the way, I'm halfway through this the Yacht Rock documentary I mentioned that's on the Max app, and I love it, and it's fantastic. And yeah, more on that to come. All right, there you go. There you go. All right, let's get into it. I mean, there he is. There is Alan. There's Alan W. Just letting his presence be known. Alan, you nailed it right there. R.I.P. Israel Vasquez. Man, this hit me hard. Often overshadowed, Alan said, by his contemporaries in Barrera, Morales, and Juan Manuel Marquez. Israel Vasquez and Rafael Marquez went on to have the classic quadrilogy and some of the best super featherweight fights. Rest well, champ. So Rafe and I, you can hear this tomorrow on Inside the Box, had a nice, remembrance here. I finally got to meet Israel Vasquez a few times when he was filling in on Showtime's Spanish broadcast. So we'd be in the same production meetings, in the past couple of years and be backstage together. And, I mean, his English was limited enough that we didn't have deep conversations, but what a sweet, genuine person, the man that I met, a handful of times. And to then mirror that with like I talked about Ian Garry's, aura this week, if you will, behave like a fighter, the old Teddy Atlas line, like Israel Vasquez, time after time, behaved like a fighter in the ring. So to hear last November when he went public that he had cancer, obviously, at 46, the same age as me right now, it's always going to kick you in the bag in that regard and show you how mortal we all are. But that was just recently that we kind of all found this out. And man, he's gone and leaves behind a family, of course, and leaves behind an incredible kind of quasi Hall of Fame resume and legacy. And yes, the trilogy / 4 fights, because the fourth fight was truly the Rocky Five of that group. It was truly the third Creed album of that great discography. Although it does have the the 6 Feet Under song on it. I mean, that song does. Man, you know how many memes are in my Instagram timeline that start with "Hold me now"? No disrespect to Vasquez by sliding in those Creek jokes, but Izzy Vasquez, those 3 fights with Rafael Marquez, that Luke and I, by the way, in like the first year of MK, remember during the pandemic when Luke and I for Showtime did like a rewatch of those. And if you haven't seen that trilogy, or throw the fourth fight in there, they were the first 3 were in 2007 and 2008, and they are on par with Barrera Morales. I mean, really, Gotti Ward. I mean, like they're just on par. They're among the all-time great. But it was like Izzy also had a trilogy with Oscar Larios, with all 3 fights ended in knockout. He had that big win over Johnny Gonzalez, and his dance partner here, Rafael Marquez, did get in the Hall of Fame in the past couple of years. And I'm not going to say it was a surprise or a shock, but he was kind of a borderline guy, right? The brother of Juan Manuel Marquez, and he got in too. I don't know. Maybe there is room here for Izzy. Obviously, the real story here is his life, but to hear so many people, I mean, that's what you want to hear when somebody passes young. What you are hearing from Freddie Roach, his ex-trainer, from everyone, and just saying like, salt of the earth, human, like family man, like this is the guy. But some people don't even care about that. And if you only cared about the guy in the ring, that guy was a son of a bitch, man. That guy was a real fighter. To be a part of a 4-fight banger rivalry like this, the best 4-pack of modern history that we ever, the best rivalry of modern history that we've ever had, it's got to be special. How about the fact that it was the second and third fights were fight of the year from Ring Magazine in back-to-back years. And the first fight was on pace to be a hellacious fight of the year until Vasquez got his nose broken badly, but yet scored a knockdown on Marquez and was trying like hell to finish that fight before the nose overcame him. And then he actually made the smart move of asking out of the fight when he was just broken. Well, then the second and third fights were 2 of the greatest fights in modern boxing history. But he did have Vasquez suffered a detached retina in that third fight. And that really kind of plagued the short conclusion of his career, which ended with the 4th meeting between the 2 of them, and Vasquez got knocked out. But never since Gotti Ward were there 2 people more perfect for each other in the ring than Vasquez and Marquez. But Magnifico, Israel Vasquez, he's already, like I said, he's already got one of those underrated cult following careers because of how many action classics he gave us. And it was, like I said, a 3-time champion at 122. But obviously we'll all choose to remember him for the artwork he left behind in his craft. And if you've never seen them, or you don't know about the Vasquez-Marquez rivalry and you're wondering who this Izzy Vasquez guy is, I mean, watch all 4 fights. But if you're short on time, go right to that rematch and watch the 22 rounds that happen over the second and third fight, and just damn. Right. Damn. I mean, how about the finish, as Rafe waxed poetically about in this week's show? How about the finish from Vasquez in round 12 of the third fight when he needed the knockdown? I mean, it's emotional stuff there, but yeah, RIP. And thank you, Alan, for supporting the channel. Thank you very much. All right. How about screw you? Okay. The Brian Campbell Experience. Will we ever get some kind of retro educational videos from BC about historical but unknown boxers and fights? We really should. You offered Jimmy Young, who was robbed again. Yeah, Jimmy Young came really close a few times. And I did get that win over the kind of out of nowhere washed George Foreman in the final fight of his first run, when he had those crazy he was tripping out in the locker room afterwards. Those like spiritual visions. But yeah, Young came really close against the best of his era, and was almost like in a Wilfred Benitez way, where it's like we talk about the 4 kings, but that guy's like the 5th king, basically. I would love to do something like that. I think the problem is, I've thrown out there a lot of ideas that I want or have for this channel. It's just, there's only so much time, unfortunately, right now. And with the other jobs that I'm juggling, I think we're starting to figure out like what really matters on this channel and what needs to be consistent and be out there. And I can F around on the periphery with the other stuff. This is something though, I want to do it right. And by the way, this awesome dude came in my DMs on IG and was like, BC, heard your idea about that Fortnite thing. And he's like, I can film it, stream it live. Here's my setup. We can do the whole thing. We get 100 donks in a BCX Fortnite game. I'm like, damn, people are really smart. I guess I got to get my shit together in some of these categories. But yeah, I would love to get a series of remember this guy going or whatever it is. And I think, you see similar stuff done on MMA fighting with Jed Meshew, but just something where it's like bringing light to fights or fighters that were, great for their time, but we obviously don't talk about them today. In the MMA space, I'd like to see more of that, to be honest with you. Maybe Luke and I should bring back, we need sponsorship money. Maybe we should bring back a resume review, because resume review, even though it was often coming or always coming for the most part at the tail end of these guys' careers when they were in the biggest fights of their runs, that was a really fun vehicle to do exactly what you're talking about right there. But yeah, all I have to do is build it, right? It really just, I'm a perennial, hey, that's a great idea, let's do it. But then, it's the 19th spot on my to-do list. You know what I mean? You should talk to my wife about that. She'll probably be very upset about my history with to-do lists. But yeah, I want to do something like that too, because I love this game. All right. And us boxing weirdos, we're all hardcores anyway. We all care about this crap. It's not like we had to worry about offending non-hardcores. Just don't watch it. All right. There you go. So screw you. There you go. All right. Thank you very much, sir. Let's keep it going there. Tacoma Aroma's here. I could smell him coming in. All-time favorite NBA rivalry between teams and between players. Well, I guess I would sort of like have to say Celtics Lakers, because I became an NBA fan through my grandmother never allowing me to watch cartoons at her house when the Celtics were on. And that was like an affront to my, to my feeling like I had deserved that, how dare you take the remote from me? But, this was grandma's house. This was the main TV, and it got me into the Celtics right in their championship run and the Bird run. And, I probably wasn't really watching every, game to game until the 87-88 season. But I was poking in and out in the years before that. So I'm coming in on Celtics Lakers being the greatest thing ever. My best early years was the tail end of the Bird era, watching him, him, Parrish, and McHale kind of always playing hurt, and you never knew if they were going to be healthy enough to contribute. And then they did, and Bird would drop 49 out of nowhere and hobble all over. And it got revived, that rivalry in my fandom, when the Celtics put together that big three and that super team. And then you met the Lakers twice in 3 years in the finals. And looking back, I don't know if I really appreciated at that time how awesome it was to add that chapter to the great Celtics Lakers rivalry. So it's definitely that for me in terms of my team. But there's been some rivalries separate from that have, made our fandom. Even though I don't love either team per se, I do find myself often deep in the 8th row at night, putting on YouTube with no sound and, rewatching NBA playoff games in full, like a weirdo sometimes, or watching those abridged highlight versions, which are fantastic too. The Pistons Bulls rivalry in the late 80s, early 90s, really through the end of the 1990 season, because 91 was the breakthrough year, where Jordan and then finally in year 2 of Phil Jackson had enough with the beatdowns and the bullying. Jordan would rebuilt his body. They now had they now played cohesively enough as a team to overcome this great team of raw, skilled defensive bullies. And they swept the shit out of them in the 91 conference finals. And we all remember Isaiah walking off with what, 12 seconds left on the clock, which is either horrible sportsmanship and fits everything negative that we've ever heard about Isaiah, or kind of cool, right? Because it's the ultimate F you, no mas. I can't even be here when you celebrate. Because I'm competitive enough where I do support a certain level of bitterness in that category, because you should take these losses hard. They should matter to you. But this rivalry of Pistons Bulls, which I believe was 80. So, I mean, the best two was the 89 and 90 series back to back, both in the conference finals, both won by the Pistons after the Bulls severely pushed them to the limit, but they couldn't get over the hump. Man, it's the physicality. I mean, when Jordan or Pippen are driving the lane, they're going to get thrown into the front row. I mean, they are going to get hammered out. And that was the time in the era for it. Never forget that Rick Mahorn left the Bad Boy Championship Pistons team, went to Philadelphia after the trade, because remember, he was originally drafted by the Timberwolves in the expansion draft. But then he goes to Philly in 1990, and Charles Barkley, Johnny Dawkins, Hersey Hawkins, Mike Jaminski, and Rick Mahorn institute the no layup rule during the playoffs, where if you go to the lane on them, they will put you in the crowd and let you know that that is not allowed. And it was fantastic in that series against Cleveland when Mark Price, Craig Elo, and Steve Kerr just got piñataed around. But then David Stern stepped in because the Bulls were coming in the next series, and we can't be rehabbing what happened in this great rivalry we're talking about with the Pistons and the Bulls. Obviously a different era, more physical game, and you can get away with worse. But I just really miss that part about the NBA, that the young stars had to freaking earn it the hard way by going deep into the playoffs and then getting manhandled the way that Jordan got manhandled by Laimbeer, Rodman, Sally, Mahorn, Edwards. I mean, just a never-ending goon squad. Even then, Isaiah's probably the dirtiest of them all, right? Damn. So great rivalry there. You want to talk about 1 year rivalry? What's my favorite series of all time, not involving the Celtics? No question. The Western Conference Finals in the year 2000, when that insanely deep Portland Trailblazers team pushed the Kobe, Shaq, and Glenn Rice Lakers to the absolute limit. And maybe, just maybe, the referees got together with David Stern and were like, if this doesn't go our way, meaning don't forget that Portland was up in the third quarter by like 15 in game 7, the finals that year would have been Indiana and Portland, which would have been a debacle in the star era back then. So maybe that had something of help in this incredible Lakers comeback. Don't forget Brian Shaw banking in that 3 at the end of the third period. That was the first knife slash that they were making. They were really coming on. But that call at the end when Steve Smith drove the lane and didn't get the call and he could have cut it to 1. I mean, that is just such BS. It's ridiculous. So I'm not going full Tim Donaghy on you, but I'll tell you this. Obviously, we know that is the first of the 3-peat teams with Phil Jackson, Kobe, and Shaq. And I mean, they were better in 01, but they were great in 2000. And even though he didn't fit in, you had Glenn Rice as your like fallback third option. I mean, it was incredible. But that Portland team was like the ultimate team. The role that Scottie Pippen played on the 2000 Trailblazers, and just the selfless team leader, hard-nosed defensive guy, but also like when they had Kobe in foul trouble in games 3 and 4, and Pippen just posting Kobe up like a bitch, play after play. Like there was an edge to that Trailblazers team with Rasheed Wallace, Arvydas Sabonis, Damon Stoudemire, Steve Smith, and really a bench that was so deep. I used to argue that the bench would have made the playoffs in the East that year as the 8th seed. I really think they would have. It was like Detlef Schrempf and Gary Grant, Stacey Augmon, and Brian Grant. That series, I watch all 7 games all the time. I go on the road, I'm going to watch that series because I'm weird, okay? That's what I'm talking about right there. Apparently, I've lingered too long on this question. Let's keep it going. But yeah, next week, we'll talk about nothing but 90s NBA the whole time, Tacoma. You and me. There we go. All right. What else we got going on here? Allen's back. Yeah, sliding in. So Reggie was aggressively in attendance at today's Inside the Box shoot, and he makes a long appearance there. But he's got 2 adversaries right now, Reggie, and both Rafe and Luke Thomas. So I wonder if that's changing the aura, the comfort that he has. But he'll do whatever he wants, and that's the Reggie way. And sometimes I'm like, man, I got to be more like Reggie in my life. But then most of the time I'm like, man, Reggie's an asshole, and he is, right? He really is. But he's the best kind, Alan, and he doesn't show his, which is really polite and very camera friendly in that regard. So I'm a big fan of that. All right, loving these questions you got, guys, got coming in here. Appreciate that. From RM, thank you for joining the chat and joining a movement, RM. Where are we moving towards? Through the bowels, apparently. Aljo went from title reign to 2 preliminary fights in a row now. And by the way, Movsar Evloev at today's media day said we're only in the prelims because of Aljo. That's his fault, which is kind of hilarious, but also part of this. Man, Aljo's getting dicked down, right? I mean, it's in the lexicon now of MMA. Did you watch MK on Monday? You're saying also, RM, that not even the featured prelim for either one. What you think? Yeah, we talked about this on Monday. It sucks. It's not fair. If it's just tied to, well, some of your fights can be boring, it's not like I don't get that. But is that really going to be the main reason? While, you know what I mean? While you take a former champion and kind of, like, again, if this was the featured prelim, which don't forget is usually airs on ESPN regular or sometimes ABC regular, you know, or whatever, and is the final free ESPN Plus, wherever you're watching it, it's the final free preview to sell the pay-per-view. So of course you want to put Namish. When they had Robbie Lawler in that retirement fight at that pay-per-view in the same slot, it was perfect. If they had done that, I'd be like, okay. And it's not because I love me some Aljo. Like, I've never really been an Aljo fan. As a fan of him, I don't disrespect him, but like, how could he not be getting a raw deal when this is probably the third most important fight on the card? The winner of this is going to make a leap. I mean, Aljo might be in a title fight if he wins this. Either way, Evloev is undefeated and is like looking to announce himself. And this is the better fit than Nate Landwehr versus Doohoo Choi, which obviously I love that fight. It's my kind of slop. It's like, you know, those cards that come out in the UFC, and I'm like, oh my God, because there's no BC slop on there. And I'm like, man, this is the worst card ever. And maybe sometimes the hardcores, the Luke Nocitas, be like, oh, I actually kind of liked it. 310 to me is that card that in general, I mean, I guess we would kind of praise it. I mean, in general, into our expectations of what an end of the year pay-per-view should be, it didn't meet those expectations. But I'm trying to get away from, I guess, having those expectations because they've been beaten out of me in the TKO era, particularly this year. But this has my kind of slop up and down. So yeah, I'm going to defend Kron Gracie being on the main card, even though he hasn't won since 2019, or the fact that Choi has one win since 2016. I'm going to defend because that's my kind of slop. But it's also kind of buried on those middle prelims too. I don't get it. So it can't be just you're boring because this is an important fight for this division's future. And this is their best division and deepest. Not their best division and deepest. Aljo was in that at bantamweight. Featherweight, though, one of the strongest. I don't know. So, you know, I'm not playing the, you know, I'm not going to play the race card, but I will say this kind of feels like at times what happened with Tyron Woodley. And maybe in both cases, it was really just to some level of degree, they annoyed the management in the negotiation or some element of how they played their cards, right? How they carried themselves publicly. I mean, you see how that can happen between promoter and fighter, and it happens all the time in both sports. But in this case, I don't really think there's justifiable ammunition here, because if you're going to use Aljo potentially in a title fight if he wins, I'm not saying this is a number one contender fight. I'm just saying when a former champion goes to a new division and, you know, beats Calvin Kattar comprehensively, even though it wasn't overly exciting, and then if he beats Movsar Evloev, the guy that nobody else seemed to want to fight, maybe, I mean, is there a part of the UFC that can just justify it as, well, the Kattar fight sucked and this fight will probably suck, so have this, and if you win this, we'll elevate you anyway? I don't know. Maybe they're prioritizing bangers. Maybe they're trying to bring ratings to the lower part of the mid prelims, or maybe they hate Aljo. One of those is true, certainly. I'm trying to figure out which one, but poor Aljo, man, it is not a great look. And he's kind of doing them a solid to a degree by fighting this guy that hasn't been solved yet and nobody wants to fight. But Aljo's a gamer outside of some, I mean, look, I get the whole DQ. Really, a lot of the dislike is the fallout of that DQ situation. But he went on a decent run after that of really big names and is still, for my money, one of the 15 best pound for pound in the world. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Who cares if he leans into wrestling and can fight boring at times? This fight is going to decide very important things in this division's future moving forward. I can't be alone in feeling that, RM, right? Are you feeling what I'm feeling? By the way, I've been sick for like 5 to 6 days. But I'm coming out of the dark on that too. All right. I'm coming out of the sick closet. This has been rough. It's been rough. Nothing will make you take stock of your life than laying in the same bed day after day and playing Fortnite and listening to 70s records. But, you know, I enjoyed parts of it. I got to tell you that much. All right. What else we got here? Okay. This guy, Galen Verbackle. Galen Verbackle, welcome to the party. All right. This guy's a newcomer. Somebody buy this guy a drink. All right. What's your favorite spot on the map to land on? Oh, this guy's speaking right to my heart right here. Love everything you do, man. Take care. All right. I also, all right, no shit jokes. Okay. The new map just hit on Fortnite. So maybe it was perfect cohesive timing that I would fall ill right during this part when the new map launches. I really like it. I'm not going to lie to you. I really like it. And there's been a lot that has been changed on it and new weapons. And I really like a lot of it. And there's some BS that I call it, you know, some weird devil stuff and magic shooting stuff. I don't want that crap. Give me a firearm. Give me a baseball bat. Let me play this like a, you know. So I tell my kids, don't put dad in the corner. Don't box me up in something. Fight me man to man, right? But I can play. I've finally gotten off that ledge. I can play build, right? You know, I can do it. I think I'm platinum 1 on both, but right now I'm trending higher on ranked no build. I am playing well right there, but there's better shooters in that game because they're not worrying about trying to box people in and spiking them. I mean, who plays like this, right? Am I really playing with kids and I haven't figured it out yet? I guess everybody I'm playing is 8 years old. What's my favorite spot to land on the map? I mean, it depends on the map, obviously. Remember that map that they had a long stretch that 2 changes ago that they had, and it had the desert with the oil rigs. That's a spot. That's a home run for me. All right. Big fan of that one. I don't tend to love mountains, although I have to say their use of mountains on the map they just put out is absolutely fantastic. And it's right around the middle of the map. It's not just pinned in the corner. So I can get down with that. But I mostly would like to be in, you know, neighborhoods or commercial areas with buildings. So I think this new map, which has a lot of, I guess, like Tokyo or Asian looking urban settings, I'm down with it. I'm really down with it. I like the new weapons too, as I said. So thank you, Galen. I'm a 46-year-old man and I play a lot of Fortnite. You're going to have to do with that information what you have to. All right. But that's the truth right now. You know, I've got that itch. I got to scratch that competitive itch. All right. You know, if Alan W is here, he's just going to be lighting me up. I appreciate that, Alan W. What a great guy. By the way, UFC stole every single idea from WWE for their. Oh, I'm thinking. Are you talking about their initial success, essentially building the company in a Vince McMahon way? Yes, Dana White was a. I think Dana White made a lot of smart decisions, merging things he didn't like about boxing, of course, but yes, using that WWE model, pay-per-view every month. You've got it. From the feeder system to Tough Enough to Ultimate Fighter and the network. Good point. UFC success comes from the original ideas of WWE. Dana is a poor man's Vince. Now, Alan, you almost sound like you're about to call him like a cardio kickboxing instructor. So you may have gone too far here, but you're also not wrong. And I think there were points, right, where Dana and Vince were kind of close and met a bunch and strategized. And then Dana also seems to have stories where Vince would stiff arm him and try to, you know, get in his way and all that and be a true cutthroat competitor. So, but yes, think about it. I mean, you know, also the way you promote fights. I mean, people don't love how often on Morning Combat I can relate a fight situation, the promotion of a fight, a negotiation of the fight, whatever, to sort of pro wrestling or pro wrestling characters. But so much of really great fight promotion is pro wrestling. I mean, it just is. So yeah, I could see that. I wouldn't go as far as saying, you know, that all they are is a copy of that, but they've been a strategic copy in a lot of those key structures or formulas that WWE had built to success. Yes. I mean, Vince McMahon, for as gross as that man is, I mean, watch the McMahon documentary, read the text message receipts between him and that. I mean, this guy, I mean, damn. I mean, I really feel like forever until I get to the end of the sentence, which is, damn, that guy Vince is a genius, right? I feel like you got to mention that he also defecated in someone's hair. I mean, this is just ridiculous, right? Wow. Wow. But yeah, that guy was also really smart and had genius ideas. The Performance Institute is such a genius one, which is modeled after WWE's. Yeah. Now extending that arena to, I mean, really what the Apex needs to do, and we've said it all along, but now that they actually ran an NXT show in the Apex, which showed UFC how to do it, was recreate that Orlando NXT arena, which was never packed. I mean, it was never big, but it was always packed to the rafters with hardcore approving fans, like hardcore approving fans that are cheering for the brand and the success to achieve their, entertainment possibilities. It's like we're all in on this. And I guess to some degree, there are a lot of UFC fans that feel like that too, that are there for the show and the status and all that comes with that, for sure. But that was 100% damn modeled after the great success WWE had. And now look at what these performance centers institutes can do for the UFC in what they've put it in China, put it in Mexico, in raising up next generations. I think that's one of the best things that they've ever done. And I don't even think they publicize it enough. And when I say best things, I mean giving the fighters free reign to the food, the training, everything. Like every fighter should go out of their way to go there. And so many do. It is, for all we talk about what they don't do in fighter pay, and how they talk about some of the fighters like Aljo getting screwed here in ways that don't make a ton of sense, or all the BS that comes with it. The fighters have access to like life-changing, things here to get to improve and learn and grow. And I think they should brag about that more. Do you know what's so yeah, Alan, you're not off on that. You're not off on that. But I'll give Dana his flowers just the same. I'm not going to come with the cardio kickboxer thing, even though Dana's done a lot of BS and some levels of his reputation, legend are overrated. Part of that happens because he's now in such a dominant position that it's like they're changing history, which Vince did too. Vince got a whole network library filled with documentaries that have almost sort of changed because the winners, get to write history. There's no doubt about that. But yeah, dude, Dana's also arguably the best promoter of all time. And certainly in terms of like real fights, like, yeah, he made a lot of great moves along the way. We missed the old Dana. We want that guy back ultimately. That's, I'm not going to lie. Part of why I'm intrigued to see what happens with Dana in boxing, obviously I've got, personal goals and intentions. And if, for my broadcasting career, and if that ever aligned like it did when I went to Dublin, we'd partner up and we'd do it because that's where I want to go. But even separate from that, the boxing fan in me kind of wants to see what mark he can make in boxing because of that reputation for being the old Dana when he's motivated, the Dana that comes out for Power Slap, right? Like when he's motivated and cares, he's the best cheerleader, ambassador, prophetizer for the whole sport there. So what will it look like when he does in boxing? I mean, if him and Turkey team, it's getting interesting. We'll see. We'll see, Alan Dubs. All right. There you go. There you go. All right. What do you got, Mark Antoine Dussault? Mark, do you eat tortilla on Thanksgiving? I hope so. I hope you do. BC, I cherish you for making me discover Pink Floyd with your top 5 album covers. Did my top 5 album covers lead to you discovering Pink Floyd? That's badass. That's indirect music shamanism. I've listened to a few of their albums and loved them all so far. Shine on You, Crazy Diamond is still my favorite song. So here's what's awesome is that I have so much work I still need to do in the full Pink Floyd discography. And I've respected it so much that I have taken it slowly and sort of at a measured pace. But when I got into the Wish You Were Here album, it was like, I mean, look, to be fair, when I got into vinyl, the first record on the same day, I bought 2 records. And I basically said, I'm buying these brand new from the store to start my collection, but I'm going to basically try to go used mostly the rest of the way. But I bought Dark Side of the Moon and I bought Electric Ladyland by Hendrix, which happens to be my favorite album of all time, for a reason, right? Because it's freaking insane. Well, Wish You Were Here is maybe even better in its own way, completely different. And I have not. I mean, I used to know Piper at the Gates of Dawn, their psychedelic debut with Syd Barrett, very well. I haven't listened to it in like 15 years. I would love to get it on vinyl and really understand it again. But I've yet to take the leap on Animals, on really a bunch outside of the big hitters. Wish You Were Here, Dark Side of the Moon, The Wall. Oh my God, I freaking love The Wall. When I hated The Wall in high school, I guess it took marijuana to really understand and figure out The Wall. But damn, right? I mean, I like Quadrophenia by The Who more, but I love The Wall. But I got some homework to do too, Mark Antoine. So I like sometimes when I look at a band in this way with such a measured pace. In fact, it's probably no coincidence that the only other band that I have that same patience and respect for in how I will go about dissecting their catalog, especially the ones that aren't that purposely aren't accessible on such a level, is Radiohead, which just so happens to be the modern day Pink Floyd. So yes, of course, I'm going to have respect for the originators here. And I know people in this MK audience have recently gone and seen David Gilmour on tour and were reporting back to me, how he sounded and how it's going these days. But damn, I mean, Wish You Were Here is the coolest album ever, not just because it's arguably the best album cover of all time, but just the structure of it. How it's kind of really only 3 songs, but man, the extended suites of Shine On You Crazy Diamond, which bookend the record, are just solo instrumental tour de forces. You know what I mean? I love Gilmour's guitar work. I probably don't rate him as high as I should, even in like my own personal, pantheon. I probably don't give him the full, that's because I give Dwayne Allman a seat at the upper table. I know it's a small sample size, but good Lord. But yeah, Gilmour's work on the extended suite there of Wish You Were Here on that same record is his most intoxicating guitar work, without question. I mean, it's just so incredible. It moves you. It really is. I mean, it really does. So yeah, a lot of work to do, and it's going to be fun unwrapping that piece by piece. Shout out to Corey Marlin, fan, big MK fan, big Radiohead guy. Really has got me back in line to exploring that. And as I've told you so many times, right now I'm stuck on In Rainbows being the best. It's come a long way. I mean, Kid A, every time I listen to it, it's the best thing I've ever heard. And OK Computer's a top 5 all-time album of anyone for me. So I've been excited and having a great time slowly unwrapping those, which I hadn't done, which is weird. It's weird how there's certain bands that run the length of your prime age where you should have had a run with them and then you didn't, and then you're catching up. It's one thing to go back in the 60s and 70s before you were born and ride the wave and go album by album for these people, but I can't believe I wasn't listening to these Radiohead records as they were, happening, as they were launching. That's a huge miss for me. Even though I listened to the Bends a lot when it came out, I was probably 3 years late on OK Computer too. It just happens that way, I guess. But there is something to that, right? The romanticism of having lived the journey with the band yourself. It is like following a fighter's career, in my opinion, where you can think back to the times where, they changed genres or came out with a crappy album or, had an overdose or something. And you're like, can they ever recapture that flame, that thing I fell in love with them for? It's kind of like following a fighter's career. I guess I look at it in somewhat parallel terms in that regard. All right. What do you got here? B-Vol 11. Does Sam Goodman have a hope in hell against Inoue? I doubt it, but the boxing gods are really rarely kind. That's true, especially as a Nakatani fight looms on the horizon. I don't think he's going to have any problems with Goodman. Respect to Goodman. He's fine. Mandatory situation. It's fine. I don't see the weapon he brings. Like, I can understand why why Inoue in his 4th division could get caught by Luis Neri, who's always better early in fights and has that rare mixture of power and speed, even though he's so inconsistent at times around that. But then other times will box his balls off. Like, remember that run he had with Eddie Reynoso as trainer? It didn't really work out, but it was interesting. And I can understand how someone like Donaire at that time could kind of trip him up and I guess humanize him. I mean, and aggressively humanize him as it did in the first Donaire Inoue fight, which is a modern freaking classic, and no one wants to talk about it anymore. Isn't that weird? No one wants to remember that fight is only like 5 years old, and it's one of the best we've. Did you not watch Inoue versus Donaire 1? Why is there never any buzz on that fight? That was one of the best things I've ever seen. Holy crap, right? But no, Inoue's going to march through this guy. Nakatani fight's interesting. It's very interesting. So is the idea of Inoue going up again, which I don't know. Will he stay? I think he might stay at this weight for a while and maybe wait for some of the guys to come up to him because Bam's coming. Bam Rodriguez is on the way. And it might behoove Inoue from a business standpoint to wait because Nakatani's going to come up, Junto from 118, and Bam. And to be the bigger man in these type of crossroads amazing fights is always an advantage in that regard. And Inoue has kind of become that. Even he doesn't. I don't think of him as a small junior featherweight, which is wild. Maybe because he's got a perfect wide frame there, and he does carry such a big stick. But damn. All right. Ellen Dub sliding back in. Appreciate you, dude. David Appleton. Yes. One of my favorites. Anyone do a wellness check, a jail, most likely. No, Appy is doing fine. So I did go on family vacation over the summer to London and Paris, and I reached out to Appy, but his school wasn't in session. So, but I did end up, my hotel was right near his school. And, we half-heartedly were like, hey, we should meet up. But I would have met up with Appy and, under different circumstances for sure. He's doing well teaching kids. Where the hell is Appy? Appy's teaching English to students in France. Yeah, that's what's going on. He's English by birth and horny by nature, I think. He's a big wine snob too. And I think he plays a little guitar. I mean, Appy's skits and bits were some of the most incredible stuff we've ever seen. I mean, that's why you finish in a tie for Donk of the Year with the great Jay Paquette, right? Who had just that pure babyface passion for the brand. That's what I'm talking about. Appy was like the Rolling Stone side of that to the Beatles. He was the sketchy guy. He was but he's a funny dude, that guy Appy. The only time I saw him in person was at the London show, and he was drunk as shit. Appy, you were drunk as shit. But I'm a big fan of that guy. I got a soft spot for him. So, I mean, I grew up around crazy. You know what I'm saying? You gotta understand that to some degree. All right. Oh, Two Changs is here. That's my guy. The guy loves Oregon football. I mean, that guy loves that more than he loves female comedy. Ever heard of the Polyphonic Spree? It's a hippie psychedelic jam band from Dallas. No, I have not. Is this new or old? They put their music videos on BET rather than MTV. Got pretty big. Are you saying this is a current or 90s setup? I'll look them up. I have not heard of Polyphonic Spree. Oh, hold on. I got something for Alan right here. Yeah, dude, I saw it. I didn't know you snuck in before. Okay. Reggie Jackson's in the house. All right. But Two Changs, I'm going to look that up. And some dude last week was like, yo, BC, you got to listen to that rap song. What'd you call that thing? MF Doom's Cookies. Hold on. I've been playing the crap out of that on that Alexa over there. Shout out to whoever recommended that, but I'll check this out. So Reggie Jackson's here. Here we go. Reg, how are things? All right. I mean, it just, the star of stars. To be honest, the singer from the DX song always wore the same hat BC is wearing, but backwards. All right, I'm down with that, Lazy Bet. I appreciate that shout out. Thank you very much. Reggie J in the house. So, Reg, how you doing today? We got to protect these. We got to protect people like Reggie Jackson. He may live a wayward life outside the ring, but when it's go time, this guy's got my back, okay? And that's what I'm talking about. He's just a donk, but he's got my back. He chose me. This guy chose me. We're life partners. It's how we got here. It's how it happened. It ended. All right. Let's keep it going from Alan W. Always appreciate that. BCU Frisky Dingo. What did we have for Thanksgiving and your thoughts on just? So we hit up the fort. Thank you for that shout out, Alan, of my Fortnite addiction, which the changes are great. And I hear they're coming out soon, by the way, Alan, with an official season 1 old school reboot, which was actually before my time. And my kids are warning me and saying it's going to be very basic, but I am interested in giving that a try. I did enjoy that brief little throwback season that was just had. But what do we have for Thanksgiving? So Thanksgiving, I didn't end up doing the full family thing and going to my uncle's like I normally do. Part of that was because I got sick. I had come home the day before from LA, and we were volunteering at a turkey trot in the rain all day, which probably furthered my illness. But my wife, God love her, God bless her, she knew how much this is my favorite holiday. She whipped together, we didn't get meat pie or turkey, but whipped together some chicken to go with every side possible. And we made a at-home feast, and it was absolutely tremendous. The star of the show was, and she got me the cheap cranberry sauce. I don't want chunks. I don't want class. I don't want culture in there. Just give me the cheapest one you got. I got to say the stuffing was the star of the show. I mean, really the stuffing is like a number 3 hitter in the lineup. It's a perennial giant in Thanksgiving, no doubt about it. So, apple pie and ice cream after. Didn't have the chocolate cream pie that I normally would have, which is is a go-to Campbell thing, along with the meat pie, of course, the tourtière, if you so oblige, in French Canada and Quebec. And they tell me down under in Australia that the meat pie is a regular thing. You got kangaroo meat in there. You got wombats. What are we talking about here? The females in my family tell me you don't want to know what's actually in the French Canadian meat pie. It's just like a mixture of every meat together, but it gets ground up into such a, you get the right spices in there. I mean, it could change your life, Alan. All right, Alan, I don't know how you get down on Thanksgiving, but you need to get yourself some meat pie. All right? Yeah, ask Johnny Meat about it. Okay. God, can Johnny Meat stop burying himself? Like, John, I'm sure I assume that the Aspinall fight is under some form of heavy negotiation right now, as it should be. Like, that should be the next move for the UFC. And I think John's going to come around and get a price that will make him do it. I do believe that. I really do. Although he makes me want to question that. But John, stop burying yourself. Stop making take no X fingers, okay? No Twitter fingers. You're already the GOAT. You don't need to be defending yourself against, Cage Fight Liquor 46 about defending why you have the regency to avoid Aspinall so much. I mean, this fight's going to happen. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. All right. It really is, Alan. Yeah, that is a Luke Thomas classic there from L&W. Yes. He is a reader. You got to give him that. I wish I had better reading discipline these days. I'm halfway through like 18 books right now, but I'll get there. I'll get there one day. All right. There we go. Lazy Bed's hanging around right here. The lead singer. Oh, you already hit me up with that. Appreciate that. Thank you. Lazy Bed again. This guy. Thank you for your support of this show, Lazy Bed. Hypothetical scenario. Well, let me let Reggie out. Hit the road, Reg. Thank you. You're given a blank check and free reign to receive a defunct MMA brand as competition to the UFC. Is what I'm talking about. Which do you choose and why? So I'm given a blank check and a free reign to revive. Okay, so you got to go Pride, right? I mean, let's be realistic here. UFC's in totality, UFC's the greatest thing to ever happen in MMA. And still, despite my complaints that it's not 2016 anymore, still soundly, routinely delivers. I got issues. The ticket prices are high. Man, what the hell's with these fight night matchmaking? But they still deliver. But Pride's the second greatest thing that's ever happened. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So imagine if we brought that back. So here's the thing. Again, I'm going back to pro wrestling references. I guess that's just what I'm made of. I'm pure carny. But you always say, and people have said this about boxing and MMA promoters, if you really want to disrupt, like truly disrupt, because it's going to be very hard for anyone going up against a behemoth, whether it's WWE or UFC, to do what PFL is claiming that they're already doing, like competing head to head. You know what I mean? It's like, under what metrics, Don? You know what I mean? Not the ones that count, right? It's going to be hard to take a big punch. Like who's ever going to be able to build up so quickly where they're going to have a chance to really swing on number one? Obviously, your hope is to just disrupt, to steal away a few nights here and there or weeks, in terms of the narrative around the sport and what's hot and what's buzzing. And then hopefully you can make enough big events happen that bring the money in and keep the things churning, that you can build your own infrastructure and you can really start to make a run there. But the talk is always like, to disrupt, you should disrupt ECW style. Like, whatever the comparison is for your sport, you should be ultimately what ECW was. It was a legitimate alternative at times, almost. I mean, obviously not really on par with WWF then and WCW at the time, because that was prime Monday Night Wars, NWO on one side and Stone Cold Steve Austin and Mr. McMahon on the other. I mean, like, holy crap. But ECW broke off a huge, way bigger chunk than they had any right to at the time in terms of the attention that they were getting. And that's the biggest thing of the criticism I have for PFL, that like they don't put their best swing together to create those sparks. Instead, like, there's like a little fire over there, but they're going to tell you that that's the biggest fire of all time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's just, they're just off in that regard. I think if you applied the idealism of what made ECW different, how it was the sum of its parts because it was so aggressively raw and real, you know, could you recreate that in an MMA promotion where it just was a different feel? I mean, that was the thing. When you turned on ECW, it kind of looked like wrestling you knew, but within 3 minutes, it was like, holy shit. I mean, I once sat front row at ECW at the Sting nightclub in New Britain, Connecticut in 1998. With that, shout out to Alex Walkuski for getting us tickets to that. And that was like prime time. It was a house show, but it was every one of the peak star on the same card. Sandman, Dreamer, Sabu, across the Dudleys, I mean, everyone you could, Raven, that you could ever wanted. And it was the most absurd and obscene and ridiculous, over the top, carny redneck classic that I have ever seen. But it just feels so, at the time, it felt so different. Even though I'm telling PFL, stop trying to be different in the ways that you shouldn't be. Like, stop. We don't need the regular season. We don't need that. Like, we don't need the playoffs. Like, we don't need that stuff. I don't need a smart cage. Give me the dumbest cage possible. But like, keep it simple and do like everybody else. But that doesn't mean present it like everybody else. That doesn't mean that you can't give that brand a smell, a funk, you know, to disrupt on a level of ECW. You're just so aggressively one thing that you're just like, has someone tried that in MMA promotion? You know what I'm saying? Where it's just you know, raw. I mean, almost like power slap energy, but on MMA. You would need, obviously, something that grabs people's attention. That's the thing. Like, it doesn't always have to be, well, we have the best fighters in the world. But what if the only fights you televise are just absolute bangers with people with crazy personalities? Then maybe you can catch a fire. Maybe you couldn't do something like that with a Pride attachment, because Pride has a royalty to it, but Pride also has. What if your promotion was just bringing back that idealism? And one of the greatest underlying things about Pride was how much they used pro wrestling in their matchmaking style and presentation style. You know, it was always kind of border, like the trash talk always hit perfect, and it was always, you knew that this fight was leading to this fight, and the date and the time, like it was just that it was set up so well that it wasn't predetermined, but the roads were so heavily paved for what's coming, and you knew about it. Some of that is an attitude that promotion brought to the table. It was different. It was edgy. Can someone do that again? Yeah, I would want to bring that type of style. It doesn't have to be ridiculous redneck ECW, you know, drink out of the beer and some of that stuff, but it could just be so aggressively what the core of what casual MMA fans really want, which is that violent, sexy buzz. You know what I mean? I don't know. They need a little BKFC vibe to it too. That's what you got from me, Lazy Bet. All right. I don't know where we're at with that. Okay, here we go. And Lazy Bit also coming in with the Brood or the Hardy Boys. Obviously the Hardy Boys. I mean, they're like legitimate Hall of Famers. They're they are just they're all-time great and great individually. And I know what the Brood became from the members, and obviously you can even argue that, Edge and Christian together went further than Edge at certain points, certainly. They were also blood-sucking vampires, and Gangrel was part of them. You know what I mean? So there's a real carny redneck vibe to that too. So the Hardy Boys were a little more elegant, and I think if I'm allowed to count, that run that Matt Hardy had as Broken Matt Hardy with TNA before the return to WWE at WrestleMania, 33? The Orlando one. I was there. That if you add that in, then there's no question it's Hardy Boys. The Brood, it is funny to look back on the Brood. The fact that two legitimate wrestlers came out, and I know Gangrel wasn't awful, and I think he's still running a school today in Florida, but yeah, they had that. That was full on Vince McMahon redneck style character creation there. No doubt about it. Alan W is here. You would never roll down the street with your windows down blasting Creed. You might as well play Nickelback FML. Okay, it's not that they're not similar or have the same style of smell on them where it's like it's kind of nostalgically cool to say I like them, but do I really like them? But with that said, yes, I would pump some Creed with the windows down. No question about that. Maybe I'm shameless. No, I definitely am, but no question about that. And dude, Creed is just way cooler than Nickelback. Even if Nickelback was more consistent and might have even been a better band, and maybe, certainly from record sales and the amount of hits. And I didn't watch that documentary yet about everyone hating them. I don't hate them, but yeah, they're in it was a really bad era for rock and roll. It wasn't a horrible era for what was really going on in rock and roll in the that alternative indie era that just took off from there. But the turn of the century, where were we at in like popular, obviously MTV, and that was some of the lowest moments in rock history. That was comparative to how low the the Klitschko heavyweight era was in terms of the depth of viable people that you actually like. Am I somehow comparing Vladimir Klitschko to Scott Stapp? No, but I'll tell you, Alan, that Creed was lame as shit, but they were also kind of cool while lame as shit. Does that make any sense? No, it doesn't make any sense. Sorry about that, Alan. But yeah, Creed's lame as shit, but that first album holds up. It really does. Tell me it doesn't. By the way, that story about the 311 band getting into a fight with a drunk Scott Stapp at a hotel is a great one that Nick Sexton tells all the time. Interesting stuff. Shout out to it's UFC 311 coming up. Imagine if 311 played Face the Pain live at UFC 311. That didn't make any sense either, but it's interesting. All right, let's keep it going. Let's keep flowing here a little bit more on this Wednesday. Ben Badge is around. Yeah, Badge. Show him to him, Ben Badge. Can I get your badge number, sir? What does the road to Zerto versus Jai look like? It's a road paved with sand, right? With a lot of money at the end of it. I don't think we're that far. We're pretty damn close. It's like Jai's one of the most beloved Turkey fighters there is. Zerto's on Turkey's radar now in a big way. So the road to it is, I think we see it this year, right? These are Turkey's sand tools. He's gonna do that, and that's a fantastic fight. I like Jai in that fight. Now, I have been tainted by years of Rafe hatred of Zerto, thinking that Rafe always sniffs out people he thinks are frauds early on. Rafe's had this feud with heel Canelo for a long time, and right now history is reaffirming some of those claims Rafe used to make unfoundedly back then. But yeah, maybe sometimes I get caught up in that. But Zerto, he brought the fight to him in that last one. It's a good ass fight, and Zerto handled CBS Chris Billum Smith. But this ain't Berto. This ain't Chris Billum anymore, okay? This is Jai Opataya. This is going to be a hell of a fight. So it's going to be paved in golden sand. And yeah. You know what's interesting is everybody that protects Turkey is always like, he's the coolest, the regular guy when you meet him. I got to meet this guy. I'll be the judge of that. All right. Turkey, I'm going to find out. Well, Turkey, why don't you come on this podcast? Okay. No, not Morning Cop. Turkey, why don't you come on the BCX Ramble chat? All right, Turkey. We'll talk Turkey. That's what I'm talking about. All right. Oh, Two Chinks still hanging around here with us. Thank you for supporting this channel, Two Chinks. Was Johnny Bump City Bumpus the greatest coked up fighter of the 80s? Do you think him and Donald Curry medal at the 80 Olympics? Yeah, always. Oh, man, it always sucks when things like what happened at the 80 Olympics can F up in the sports that you have these windows and these cycles for Donald Curry. But yeah, shout out to Johnny Bumpus right there. It is weird in hindsight that, you know, that happened and that we didn't compete at the 80 Olympics. And speaking of coked up fighters in the 80s, dude, I really miss UFC's or USA's Tuesday night fights. You want to talk about what I was talking about before on reviving an MMA brand with like the ECW feel? I mean, obviously it wasn't that crazy, and it had more of like a combined showbox and Friday Night Fights flavor to it. But it also was weird, and it also had those guys that would come on like this that had no business being in the ring. A lot of bumpuses would show up. So it almost had this rotating quality of like, what's that redneck boxing thing that Barstool does in West Virginia? Like that kind of thing would show up every once in a while with the mullet haircut. And you'd also get legitimate guys on the way up. You'd also get a lot of people like I saw old Larry Holmes make comebacks on there. I'll never forget a fight with old ass Duran when he was like light heavyweight fighting some bald and white tall kid from Boston who was putting it on him, and Duran just dug it out and got inside on him and stopped him. And you're just like, how many more divisions could this legend just keep climbing in his 40s, you know, fighting these seemingly unnecessary badass fights on TV? That was a taste that Tuesday night fights brought that's been missing. Somebody needs to have an edgy boxing broadcast. I don't mean what HBO tried with that series where they had Ed Lover as the host and there was like a DJ. That was ambitious in hindsight from HBO. I forgot the name of that series. Why can't I think of that? And that's where Floyd Mayweather fought what he called for most of his career his toughest fight when he fought Emmanuel Augustus on that series. So wild times to look back on right there. But yeah, shout out to Donald Curry, probably would have medaled right there. Man, our amateur system back then, you know, Mark Breland in 84, it sucks to see, you know, what it's become. I know it's kind of making a little bit of a comeback now, but I want to live in a world where USA boxing is like untouchable. You know what I'm saying? But we don't live in that country anymore. But you know what I'm saying? It's just the truth of where we're at. No doubt about it. All right. Let's keep going around the horn here. Ben Badge is getting around this guy. Thank you. Is Tank right? Is Shakur undeserving? You know, I talked about that to open the show, but no, a 3-division champion, silver Olympic medalist, like, and he's fought some people. It's not like Shakur hasn't fought anybody. Been heavily avoided, but I mean, he's fought Oscar Valdez. Like, you know, he's put together some Conceição, like he's put together some decent names. People avoid him. Yeah, we're starting to get to that point, which was my point. I don't want to get on Canelo for not making the fights that seem obvious that would, you know, be par for the course in his great career. But suddenly it's like, no, I don't want Benavidez. Here's a million reasons why. And, you know, no one will give me credit for Crawford. I don't love that. I don't love that we've had to spin the narrative of, oh, Canelo's ducking now when we've done nothing for but praise that guy, rightfully so. I don't want to do that to Tank. But how much longer, right? Like, you know, like not his fault. Couldn't get the Loma fight to happen. Like I said, I like the run of Ryan Garcia through Frank Martin. That Pitbull win aged a lot better since then. I don't got an issue with the Rolly fight. Like, but we're at that point now where you're not in a weak division or an area where there are no names There's so many names. And I know the business has to line up. And I know there probably was a window where it definitely was where Shakur could have signed with PBC. And maybe it's true that he wanted a long-term deal for his own sort of foundation, to make this move from Top Rank make the most sense and work for him. So signing with Eddie in the way he did and now being firmly positioned in Riyadh season for big fights, not a bad move from Shakur. I don't hold it against him at all. But if Shakur is not available right now for Tank, unless Tank decides to get more Turkey friendly, then you gotta cast a wider net and get some of these big names that the people will really care and get moved about. So, I don't like that kind of. If you just want to say, "Hey, look, Shakur had his chance, but he didn't sign and he went elsewhere," that's probably what I would prefer him to say. But fighters say different things for different reasons. I don't want this narrative to change for Tank, who in the ring at least lives up to expectations and then some, delivers, is a fun fighter to watch and cover, and is at a point where there's so many big names in and around, even if they're going to have to play on his terms at his weight. I mean, it did make Ryan do what we don't love, which is the rehydration clause. But even with that, he's got to be a little bit more aggressive. And now to hear that he wants to leave the sport, I don't know what that's all about. I'd love for him to certainly get whatever help or get to a place mentally where he needs to be. Of course, that should be primary, but it's weird. It's weird to see him be so aggressive against the idea of Shakur. Maybe there's built behind reasons in the larger game that is often being played, negotiating through social media, all that. There you go. That's what's up. Okay. Jay is what's up. Is this Jay Aaron? No, Jay. Thank you. Thank you. The single letter J for being a big part of what we do here. Remember that time I didn't read the question yet and it was some absurd, inappropriate thing and I left it up for like 30 seconds and I was like, oh my God, was that by Alan W? Somebody slipped one through the BC 5 hole. Jay says, what up, BC? The beating Jack Dempsey put on Jess Willard in 1919 for the heavyweight title is one of my favorite old school fights to watch. What are your favorite pre-color TV fights? Hey, great poll, great reference. Jess Willard got, what? It's so crazy when you remind yourself in that era, this black and white era, this era where you're not that far removed from bare knuckle, right? Era, when those fights, the rules were so damn brutal. It's absurd, right? It's like not just when you knock someone down, you can stand over them. And as soon as they rise, you tee off again. But the fact that they were in an era back then where a lot of these fights had unlimited rounds or 50 rounds or whatever. So you're like, oh, knocked him out in the 47th round. And it was 115 degrees that day. I mean, it's just holy crap. As well as what the demand was, which is why watching so many of these black and white classic fights are so fun to do. The crowds are just something we can't even imagine. Even 80K at Wembley Stadium with the structured tiers doesn't compare to watching some of these fights when it's at these, like there was a makeshift stadium in Jersey City for one of these Dempsey type level ridiculous heavyweight showdowns that I think attracted 105,000 people, and they're just on top of each other, and it's just the humanity, right? And there's another big one that took place out in like Wyoming, and or in Nevada, upstate Nevada, and there's 100 and something thousand people there. It's like, I love that raw element to these old fights. So what are look, the Jack Dempsey run is so fun to rewatch. You can see so much of what Mike Tyson as a young student to Customato in the house every night watching that incredible film collection, which was ultimately, by the way, purchased by ESPN after the death of Cuss and his man, Jimmy Jacobs, all of them. But that film, the greatest film collection of old school fights, Tyson took a lot from Jack Dempsey, from his style, his swagger, his dress, the way he carried himself. I mean, Jack Dempsey was just an absolute badass. So I'll watch any of those. I love going back and doing that. And that's where ESPN Classic and really like ESPN2 in the, regular ESPN in the 80s, ESPN2 in the 90s really had an aggressive boxing schedule on their, in terms of these old ass fights, not just like Sugar Ray Robinson era, but going back. I mean, Dempsey and Tunney, the long count. I've seen that fight a million times. Love the absolute shit out of that fight. Marciano versus Walcott, holding the punch that saved the day in the 14th. Holy crap. And even those would be at like Comiskey Park, Yankee Stadium, just packed to the gills. I mean, the romanticism of thinking back to where the world was for Louis Schmeling 2 and what the impact of the result of that fight was going to have on people all over the planet who were inevitably huddled in their town square around like the single transistor radio. Let me muck this up to be the most romantic as possible. And that somehow maybe, if your fighter won, it meant that your country won and this war was going to end, in your favor. Holy crap. I mean, that's when a fight is not a fight. It's a historical cultural event. It's the Thrilla in Manila. It's the Rumble in the Jungle. It's the fight. I mean, how big was Ali Frazier 1 in 1971? Yet that was contained to one building, MSG. The toughest ticket of all time. How many people went to movie theaters or stuck by radios? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's why I get excited that there is a chance something like Jones and Ngannou could happen. I'm telling you. But yeah, the Ezra Charles, Joe Walcott fights are fantastic. Great black and white fights there in their heavyweight rivalry there. So many. I'm not the historian I should be in the black and white era, to be very fair with you, but I do have a lot of time and a lot of experience put in on watching those and can really credit the commitment from ESPN with that same film collection that Mike Tyson had access to on the come up, to be able to educate me in that way. So there you go, Jay. Rock on, okay? All right. Alan W knows the pathway to my heart. He knows what's going on here. Thank you, Alan W. You'll throw me the rock. Give me the rock. You know what I'm saying? I used to say that in rec basketball in high school. Like, give me the rock. That was like my calling card. How good is Scottie Pippen? Alan asks. Top 5 small forward. Is he a top 50 great? I'm on the side that will willingly overrate Scottie Pippen and take it as far as you want. Yeah, I even think, he'll go down, of course, as a sidekick, but maybe the greatest sidekick. And he's so much more, obviously, than the sidekick title. I mean, don't forget that when Jordan went to baseball, they didn't drop down by that much in 94. They won 54 games, and Pippen was an absolutely legitimate MVP candidate who I think finished second that year. And even though his scoring didn't skyrocket, his all-around stats and team play was through the roof. Of course, it's always going to be offset by him S-ing that brick and asking out of the Bulls game 3 when Kukoc hit the miraculous shot. And Pippen was good for that. The migraine in game 7 against the Pistons, right? Like it happens. But I think he was so great. And so, if you think about where this era currently has gone, kind of physically ahead of his time, with the ridiculously long reach and the explosiveness and the length. I mean, dude, he could dunk in your face. I mean, when he put it on Ewing that time and then pointed down on him and teabagged him, like, damn, that was nasty. I think Pippen was so great and could have played in any era that, in the 90s in high school when we're killing time at the, study hall or lunch table and drafting out all-time teams of the full players in NBA history, and could my team beat yours? I was never afraid to put Scottie Pippen as a small forward on those made-up teams, with the greatest of all time around him, because he was such a perfect glue guy to do so much, not just defend. You don't want to say defend all 5 positions, but close enough, right? And on top of that, the unselfishness. On top of that, the fact that he could at will regularly score, 25 to 35 points, and it's not even a thing. But outside of those couple moments, he was kind of perfect in a lot of ways, and was the only guy who really could play with Jordan's demanding style and way and adapt to whatever he needed to be. I think the most underrated thing about him was that he could also play point guard if needed. And ultimately played that on the Dream Team when both Stockton and Magic were hurt for a lot of that tournament, and him and Jordan would kind of, share the role as point guard, but really that was Pippen running that. And who he became. Now, look, the experiment in 99 didn't work when they tried the old, big three in Houston with Barkley and Olajuwon and Drexler, right? We're talking about all of them, or had Drexler retired at that? I think Drexler had retired. So Pippen would have come in there. Correct me if I'm wrong. And they get knocked out by the Lakers in the playoffs. And really, there's been a lot of bad blood since that between Pippen and Barkley blaming each other. But I thought Pippen redeemed it completely with who he was on that 2000 Blazers team. And again, should have made the finals. But can we throw a little blame at him for how quickly the Blazers fell apart after that and became the jail Blazers? I don't know. Probably not. And then it was over for Pippen. But when you factor in the winning, the way more clutch play than not in the big moments, the versatility, the any era, like I don't think it's crazy to rate him super high. Yes, I think he's a top 50 player of all time. Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, a defensive stopper, like a defensive player of the year level, absolute stopper. Yeah. And it's just easy to just label him as either a sidekick or overly play up the obvious missteps in his career that I already mentioned. And it's really weird with the whole thing about Jordan's son sleeping with Scotty's ex-wife. I mean, I don't know where to go with that information. That's really weird. And Scotty's kind of a weirdo too. And he just put out a book, I think, that was aimed at being sensational, and not everybody loved it. But guy's a killer, and I always respect that. It couldn't have been easy playing with Jordan. It never could have been easy. But for a guy that like wasn't heavily recruited out of high school and like never even gave a single thought to playing in the NBA and was just like, I'm going to go get my degree. And I'm so happy that basketball gave me a chance, and was kind of an unknown when drafted. And then he became that and had that career. Shot him out, LNW. All right. That's what I'm talking about. All right, I think I'm talking in circles right now, but let's get a one or two on the way out here. Two Chang's thank you. Is Gene Tunney the most underrated? I think he's one of them, because like I always say, when people are like, well, that guy's a top 10 heavyweight, right? Like, it's really hard to be a top 10 heavyweight when you actually take the time and make the list and see how many great heavyweights that you're basically saying no to, right? It might be Jack Dempsey and Gene Tunney, depending on how you have it, that don't even fall in there. When I can see sometimes and have seen Dempsey as high as like 3 or 4 or 5. When, how do you compare the eras? That is not easy. Not easy. Definitely not. Just like it's not fair or easy to the people of, Marciano's era, where you're not even 6 feet tall and not even 200 pounds. How could they compare to the super heavyweights of today? But with all that said, Gene Tunney's amazing. I bought that. That's one of the books that I almost finished. I got that for Christmas a couple years ago, his biography. And he's a Connecticut guy. He's an Ivy Leaguer. I mean, he was like a distinguished gentleman. He could also, was tough as shit and really brought an early craft to heavyweight boxing, defensive responsibility, some real movement and combinations. Like he kind of helped evolve at the elite level to some small degree, and then obviously had an incredible record and great success, and was a part of one of the most. I mean, when you get, when you have a fight that's known by one moment, like the long count, he was involved in some of the biggest events in that division's history, but doesn't really get talked about anymore. And it's going to be harder and harder to find him in top 10 lists of great heavyweights. But yeah, incredibly underrated there. Two Chainz gets around the boxing. He knows what he's talking about over here. And I can get down with that. Okay. Really. Alan W saying, you had meat pie with bat wings today. I don't believe that at all. And what the hell are you talking about, LW? Have you tried the tortilla? Have you given it a real try? All right, then you got to get back to me. Now, look, I understand that my peanut butter and cheese push is going to be a hard sell for some. To me, I think that's would be one of the easiest things to try. Everybody loves peanut butter. Everybody loves American cheese. What's the issue here? That they don't belong together? Well, it's not like it's not like it's like, here, try putting ketchup on your banana. That's weird. Like, that's just weird, right? This is just natural. It just works, and it's like, man, how'd that couple fall for each other? It just works. It just works. But she's like way taller than him. It just works. All right. It really does. But thank you, Alan, for bringing meat pie back to where it belongs in the lexicon as the greatest thing going in Thanksgiving meals, which is the best meal ever of the year. You know this already. Kyle or Keel Grease. Kyle, Keel. I mean, you got to help me pronounce this here. Thank you, though, for joining. Thank you for helping out here. Reporting back to say, oh, yeah, this is one of the bros that saw Gilmore at MSG. Gilmore at MSG, David Gilmour, of course, guitarist, Pink Floyd, was life-changing. He was perfect, 80 years old, and his voice was so powerful. That signature ethereal Gilmour guitar tone was indescribable. It cut right through. I'm glad you shared this. Thank you so much. I'm glad you went to that concert. I didn't realize he was 80. I know he had done a ton of interviews ahead of this tour on shows that he didn't normally do. So he was out there. I got a lot of respect for that guy. And you're talking about tone. He's one of the most unique, perfect. I mean, to be honest, that's why I love, in a completely different style and different way. That's why I love Dickie Betts so much. And he's one of my favorite guitarists. He's not one of the top 5 best guitarists of all time, but there's something about his songwriting. There's something about his tone, man. And maybe in Garcia, it had a similar-ish sounding tone, but was 3 times the guitar player for sure. But there's just something soothing about Dickie Betts' tone that just, man, it says everything I want. He's not, he's no Eddie Van Halen, but he's not as good as, not even close to as good as what Dwayne was. But Dickie played his role, and when he needed to be the leading man, he could also bring it. Gilmour is on a completely different level, and that tone is so damn unique. Damn, good stuff there. Appreciate that. All right, a couple more for the road. All right, Michael Carson's back. I'm like, where is Michael Carson? We need him here. These BC live chats are great. Hey, they're great if you like meandering, okay? And if you're a fan of the 90s, whether the serious sports talk, the joking, non-serious takes, BC brings the art. I'm attempting to. Thank you very much. Yes, is that art? Are we art? Is art art? That's really the thing. All right. Alan W's back. Yeah, I like turtles. Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Alan W. Alan, we need to, you're a man of mystery. We need to know more about the Alan W. Who are these people? Okay. I think I'm going to figure it out. I know I threatened that. I'm going to figure out, but yeah, you can't show your pipe. But can we get some people on this show? I don't know. Maybe we'll find out. 2 Chainz got a couple more boxing talks for you. Rank these 5. So we got heavyweights here. Hasim Rahman, Chris Bird, Jerry Cooney, Tim Weatherspoon, and Michael Moore. This is an interesting offering from you, Changs. Because each are kind of like good and flawed, but tough or skilled, but like I want to say Michael Moore, but he didn't hold it together well at the highest level. Chris Bird, I mean, he might be more skilled than anyone on this list, but he had some limitations, size and power that would hold him back. And he was also in a rough era in terms of not a lot of history making opportunities, although shoulder injury and all, he does have a win over Vitaly Klitschko. I'm going to go with I'm going to lean into the very best of Michael Moore here, okay? And go Moore 1, Bird 2, Cooney 3, Rahman 4, Witherspoon 5. What do you think about that? There's debates within all of those, probably a couple controversial ones, but it's a good mix of 80s and 90s heavyweights there. Appreciate that. All right. We got any others? Ben Badge says, will we get Nakatani versus Tsutsumi there? Is that how I pronounce that? In 2025. I don't know a ton about this gentleman you're asking on the right. Maybe I should get learned here. You know what I'm saying? Maybe I should, Ben Badge. I can't answer that. I can't effectively answer that. But can we get Nakatani versus Inoue? It feels like we're on our way to there. And I'll be down with that for sure. All right. 2 Chang says, any Jackie Callan stories? The book Dark Trade is my favorite boxing book. The Tony Callan story is nuts. I would love to read that book that you're talking about, but no, I've seen Jackie a couple times at really big fights, but had never been introduced and never really talked to her. But I have immense respect for the pioneering she did, her toughness, her swagger, and what she brought to the boxing business. it's certainly legendary, no doubt about it. And just had such a special relationship with James Toney as her fighter that I would love to hear all of these stories and read these books. I've got the Four Kings sitting in front of me. I read that once when I first got it a long time ago. I'm threatening to jump back into that one, but man, I love a great. I always say it. Did you read the Teddy Atlas autobiography? It's really good. It's really interesting. The stories are insane. It's worth a run in that regard. All right. Big fan of everybody here. She had a lot of roast beef. Wow, a lot. This guy Alan W. Just this guy, the new Gringo Poppy. There we go. Thank you so much, Alan W. All right, and also here, thank you, Kyle, for jumping back in. His daughter, Romani Gilmore, played harp and sang. Oh, she's got all his gifts. Absurdly smooth and hypnotic voice. The girls lit candles in a summoning circle, stood in it, and sang Great Gig in the Sky. Did they summon demons during this process at all? I will say that sounds absolutely awesome. And to be able to have that chance to play with his daughter, I saw Van Hagar in 04 at Worcester, Mass, 4th row. Yet it was an awful concert, and Eddie was drunk as shit and did not commit to solos. It was a really disappointing performance that I didn't realize the full understanding of it until I read Sammy Hagar's book, where he talked about that tour and how regrettable it was. But when they brought out, and at that point I think he was only 16, when they brought Wolfgang Van Halen out, and him and Eddie did a guitar solo back to back, and again Eddie really was hammered and played like shit, but that was a cool ass moment. Like really, really, really was. And I can only imagine what this must have been like with the Gilmore family. So shout out to that one. There you go. So I like Portugal the Man too, with like the family element, how husband and wife in the band, and their daughter Frances is a big part of everything that's going on. It just really has that family feel in there. All right. Tu Chang says 50-year-old Larry Holmes beating Butterbean was epic. I was way more into that fight than I should have been, to be fair with you, when Holmes was like 48 and he's like, all right, enough of this Butterbean guy. If I got to come back and take this fight, I will. And then he outboxed the crap out of Eric Esch there. But I like those type of weird. I mean, that's why when Tyson Paul was first ever sneezed about, I was like, the carny in me is like, maybe this is no, it's not. A couple more as we go here. Ben Badge saying Benavidez Morel winner fights who next? Thank you, Ben, for your support of the show, as well as everybody else. It's got to be a huge fight. Both guys are putting on the line, unbeaten versus unbeaten. I think it comes down to, you probably think it's going to be the winner of Beterbiev Bivol 2, except for the fact that Bivol was that close the first time. Like, I thought he won the fight. What if he wins the second? Are we inevitably having a immediate trilogy? We might. It's a possibility. But I think the winner of Morel Benavidez should only really look up first at the idea of fighting the winner of that series next for the undisputed light heavyweight title. But don't count out Canelo completely. I really don't know at the end of the day what Big Red is really thinking. It's similar to the ad nausea discussions we've had about, is John Jones trolling us? Is he really is he showing us his cards? What's really happening? Either way, it's annoying. I don't know. Is Canelo waiting for the winner of this to fight the winner of Bivol, just so he doesn't have to go through Beterbiev at all? I don't know. I don't know anymore. But the winner of this fight's going to get a massive fight on that level. And I'm excited. I'm really excited. I cannot wait. I mean, there's some things that are coming together in boxing, despite all the troubles and transition that boxing's going through. I mean, Turkey alone and we got Usyk Fury 2 coming up. Then we got that stupidly impressive Bivol card. In between, we got some PBC pay-per-view main events like Benavidez Morel, like Tank coming back, that you're like, damn, I got to see this despite anything else going on. So, and maybe we get Crawford Canelo this year. Okay. BC's back. Okay. That's what it is. All right. Yeah. Well, he's gone. Reggie's gone. We love that guy though. And love the support here of Oh, we got another guy. That guy who's trying to come in. Ariel's defense. We're not even talking about Ariel. I gets paid by the network and promoters, like claiming I don't. Yeah. Oh, you're asking me about Ariel's defense about. Look, Ariel's close with MVP. Whether he's getting paid by them or not, he obviously is protecting their side of their interest of it, their narrative of how it's going. And it's annoying to some degree, but I also understand it. And I guess even though he makes defense and says he's not getting paid by them, we're not in an era anymore, in my opinion, where that even matters, because he's not getting that job unless they want him. Like, that's how it works nowadays. And when you're working for, a network, for the promoter, you're working for them. And you have to understand that to some degree. Now, that doesn't mean I don't have issues with Ariel's take. I have had issues with how Ariel has sort of framed the Tyson Paul thing, but I also understand, right? Like, I also understand. And, we also worked for Showtime for years in MK and had a very close relationship with PBC and Bellator. And, we're critical and we're honest and open, but it was obviously a different tone because we were partners with them. So it's like, I get it. I know where we're at right now, but I didn't fully love the explanation, but also, like, I don't have to. It's not, it's not for me. It's his take, and it's cool. And keep on trucking, man. We're all trying to get after it, right? At the end of the day, we're all trying to make our dreams come true. There's room for all of us to succeed. All right. That's what I'm saying. Two Changs, thank you as well. Thanks I appreciate you guys. Thank you for getting my back on here and jumping in, supporting me with the super chat, and just supporting me with your time and your questions. It's the least I could do. All right. It really is. Thank you guys. Nothing else to report here. Oh yeah, watch tomorrow, Thursday, Inside the Box with your boy BC and Rafe Bartholomew. A fantastic episode. We catch up after the holiday and we look at a lot of big ticket items that you might expect. Some of that was touched on or teased today. And I'm also sitting down with Aljamain Sterling tomorrow. So check that out on the BCX. Okay. A little quick update with Aljo. Why are we getting dick down, Aljo? That's going to be the first question. That's going to be the absolute first question. Yo, Aljo, we getting dick down or what? That's what I'm going to say to Aljo. All right. It's probably not what I'm going to say to Aljo. All right. That's the show, guys. That's all I got for this week. So like and subscribe. Keep being you. Remember, it's the hard time of year for a lot of us. So be nice to each other. And if you're going through it, like, reach out and touch somebody, DM somebody, make a call to somebody. All right. It's normal. It's human. Be human. Okay. We can get through this. We're going to get through this. We're getting through this. All right. That's BC for you. Just talks in circles all day long. Thanks to Reggie Jackson for joining us earlier. Thank you from Tacoma Aroma to Alan W. to Michael Carson. I mean, all these people that come, Two Chang's Lazy Bed, that come onto here and make this this community, this little pub that we get together for 2 hours a week happen. So peace in the Middle East. Thank you to Boston Scally. Thank you to Mikey, my man. And we are, if I can find